Hey, Steve, so all I'm doing is right here, the last one.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could just tell them that.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the February 15th, 2011 meeting of the Wareham Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners. May I have a roll call, Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair, all 5 selectmen are present, plus Mark Andrews, Town Administrator.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. We have 3. First one is the Wareham Historical Society, Old Methodist Meeting Hall, House, 495 Main Street, Wareham. President's Day celebration, February 21st, 2011, at 7 p.m. The presenters will be Bob Blair and Scout Troop 93 will open our meeting explaining the proper display, folding, treatment, and disposal procedures of the United States flag as performed by the Scouts of America. Also, Bob will describe the difference in the flag folding for military honors. Presenter Bruce Bagley. There will be another one, A Dangerous Business in Imperialist Time, New Bedford Whalers and the American Civil War. Commercial whaling had brought flush times to the port of New Bedford by the mid-19th century. Events of the Civil War were to adversely impact the industry together with developing economical realities. These events would serve to mark the beginning of the end of this colorful and profitable business, playing significant roles during the periods of 1861 to 1865, where the Great Stone Fleet and the attacks upon the New Bedford whaling vessels by Confederate raiders on the high seas. Mr. Bagley is a well-known lecturer on the 16th President, Abraham Lincoln, and American Civil War, a program not to be missed, followed by social refreshments. Information is 508-273-0069. Also, Madam Chair, Friends of the Wareham Free Library and the AD Makepeace Company invite the public to attend FORE, for the Friends, a fundraiser in the library, on Sunday, February 20th, from 10 to 4. The library will be transformed into an 18-hole miniature golf course. The tees, fairways, and greens will be found between the book stacks and around the reading area, into the children's room and out into the meeting room, which will be the 19th hole. Food will be offered by Frankenstein's, hot dogs, and more. And face painting and raffles will also be available at the 19th hole. This is a great family event and a fun way to start off school vacation. Please support this fundraiser. Adults can play for $5 and children under 12 for $3. The last one, Madam Chair, is the Recycling Subcommittee is looking for members. I'm going to read the whole thing. Per by meeting with our recycling liaison, Carl Winslow, the committee has been put on hold at this time. The committee has to be formed to look into the possibilities of Wareham instituting a pay-as-you-throw program. I have been informed by DEP that our town cannot consider going into a pay-as-you-throw program until we have one trash hauler contracted with the town for residential pickup. Presently, we have 3 private haulers in town. The regular recycling committee has openings for 3 citizens at large members, and they asked for us to make this announcement tonight. Madam Chair, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mrs. Ekstrom, did you have an announcement?
I did just have one brief announcement, and this is really for the people that might be watching us at home. The school department is holding a bullying prevention discussion seminar right now that is over at the middle school, and it is showing currently right now live on Channel 97. So if anyone wants to flip back and forth, not that we want to lose you, but that is a very important discussion. So if anyone is at home and couldn't get there for it, it's on Channel 97. I don't know what the Verizon channel is, but that's the Comcast channel. 28. Oh, Verizon 28. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ekstrom. Were you going to talk about increase the peace, stop the violence at any point in time?
Oh, I can do that right now.
Why don't we do that while we still have a lot of listeners, if you don't mind?
Excellent. Okay, I hope you didn't change the channel. The Stop the Violence, Increase the Peace rally. We got a date. As I said last week, it was tentatively the 18th, and we were having a problem with the speaker. We have moved it to Saturday, February 26th, 2011 at 6:30 p.m. At the Wareham High School Gymnasium. The guest speaker will be former Boston Celtic Chris Herron. Chris Herron, a Durfee High School graduate and a 1999 NBA draft second-round pick, played for the Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics. Chris struggled with substance abuse for much of his basketball career. Now drug and alcohol-free, Chris has refocused his life to put his sobriety and his family above all else. His basketball development company, Hoop Dreams with Chris Herron, Inc., trains basketball prospects throughout New England. Off the court, he is committed to sharing his story in the hopes of making a difference in someone's life. So I would like to extend out to everyone to let's join together to support one another in stopping the violence and increasing the peace in Wareham. We are fortunate to live in one of the most beautiful communities in Massachusetts. We all need to take responsibility to ensure that Wareham is a safe, welcoming, respectful town. This is an opportunity for all of us to get involved, support each other, show respect for one another, and help realize the potential of Wareham. Again, that is Saturday, February 26, 2011 at 6:30 p.m. At the Wareham High School Gymnasium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ekstrom. Is there another organizational meeting for the community leaders who are putting together the program between now and then? It hasn't been set yet. We'll let you know when the next organizational meeting for this event, and thank you, Mrs. Ekstrom, and everybody in the community who's been instrumental, including Ken Fonts and Sergeant Walter Correa, Carl Baptiste, for helping us get this together, just to name a few, who've been instrumental in getting the date, the site, the speaker, and thank you to the many other members of the community who have joined us in this effort.
And if I can just say one more thing, there are a couple of people that I will be calling tomorrow that I've talked to, and I told them I was touching base with them. I've just been really busy, and tomorrow I am dedicating to getting all this straightened away. So,
thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to speak at citizens' participation this evening? Mr. Walton.
Good evening, Dave Walton.
Good evening.
Long Beach. Just quick, 2 weeks ago I was in here to request a meeting prior to bidding on the sewer job on our beach. And last week I wasn't able to come, but I was able to see a replay of the meeting last week, and I watched the engineers and what have you. And the input from the board was superb. Quotes from Brenda, from my quotes and everything. And I'm here for one reason. Too often the board may be subject to criticism. I'm here to say thank you very much. I was treated with respect. My request was granted. And I just want you to know that I do appreciate it very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walton.
Very welcome, Mr. Walton. Just so, for those who may not have received the word, the sewer commissioners will be meeting with the Project 3 neighborhood September 9th, September, I wish it was September, February 19th in the cafeteria at the town hall at 10 a.m. to answer some questions and discuss Contract 3 sewer project, which is the Agawam Beach area. Thank you. Who else wanted to speak this evening? Mr. Smith?
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Dave Smith. I'm speaking for the Friends of the Wareham Community Pathway. And I wanted to take this opportunity to announce a meeting between the town administrator and the Department of Transportation, marking the beginning of the building of the Wareham Pathway bike path. The meeting, which is open to the public, will take place on March 9th at 9 a.m. in the town cafeteria. We would like to show our support by having a large presence. I would also like to take this opportunity to I'm sorry, I lost my place here. I would also like to take a minute to thank the team that's actually put this together. Louise, Joyce, Pam, the board of directors of the Wareham Friends of the Wareham Community Pathway, and the Bikeway Committee, which have all, without their help, the pathway would never come to pass. But I would also be remiss if I didn't point out a single person. Louise Fontaine, I'm probably not pronouncing her name correctly, I apologize, is one of the motivating powers who pushed this project through. And think Mark might remember her. She's, first of all, researched the project and found out that we needed a project needs form, which is a form, basically an application to the DOT to be able to actually build the pathway. She got the form, filled it out as best she could, took it to the TA's office, who filled out what Lewis couldn't. Now Lois has to get Mark to sign the PNF. Mark had to research the project, of course, to make sure that everything was correct and make sure it was all legitimate. Now Mark, after signing it, had to go to the paper had to go to the Mass DOT. And I would not be surprised if Lois didn't hand carry that over herself. The DOT sent a letter to Mark asking to set up a meeting. Somehow Lois got a copy of that letter and passed it around. Now Mark had to put up with Lois knocking on his door until the TA office actually set up a date, which again is March 9th at 9 p.m. I truly believe if Lois hadn't been so persistent, this project would still be lingering on someone's desk. And I think Lois is an example of how a single citizen can make all the difference. She did it without being belligerent or nasty. She was polite but stern, and most of all persistent. So I just want to say thank you, Lois. We couldn't have gotten this far without you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Was there someone else who wanted to speak before the board this evening?
Working.
Push the button.
You know, I didn't get much exercise today, huh? It's all paperwork. Hi, I'm here tonight. I'm Jackie Lindsay, Wareham Village Association, and the Swan Festival is coming up on July 9th. Last night I got a call that the Masons are going to join us again for the My Chip program. And I need special volunteers. I need dental hygienists. If there's anyone out there that would like to join us. They do a safety program that consists of cheek swabs for the DNA. They also do dental impressions, and that has to be done by a dental hygienist. Then we do a videotape, and we ask the children questions. And at the very end, we give the parents the kit, and it's no cost to the parents. So I need volunteers, people to videotape, and dental hygienists, and other volunteers too. It takes about 50 of us to do this. Okay? Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for all the work you do on this. It's quite an event. This will be the 15th annual Swan Festival. It's a lot of effort over a lot of years. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak before the board this evening?
I'm Jack Dixon, so-called treasurer of the recycling committee, and I just thought I'd like to come in this evening and thank Mr. Andrews for his assistance in the past year. He's been very businesslike and very cooperative, and I appreciate working with somebody like that. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Okay, the next item on the agenda this evening is the town administrator's evaluation. This will be the second time that we have actually done a public evaluation of the town administrator. Appreciate all of the input that has come from the public since last week. I will not be reading all of it, but all of the board members have received everything that was sent in. So thank you again for your positive feedback. Well, Mr. Andrews, would you like to say a few words?
Madam Chair, thank you, and you have before you my self-evaluation that I provided to each of the board members. First of all, I want to say I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve, that I take a great pride in my work and my work ethic, and I've set 4 basic goals for the community that I sat in this chair 1 year ago and wrote out what I believe to be a strong plan to move this community forward. The first is to continue to improve the fiscal stability of the town and our overall financial administration. And you have in your packets each week, since we received the Department of Revenue report and also our independent auditors report, a very significant step forward in the right direction. Approximately 91% of the Department of Revenue concerns have been met and have been successfully addressed. The remaining items are continuous works in progress, and I do intend to keep the board updated on that. I've also worked very hard with this board and the Finance Committee, I see members out there, to unify the budgetary process. And when I got here, I saw a fragmented approach to budgeting, and we began to put together a set of budget instructions for all municipal departments, and each and every one of them, by the way, come before not only the town administrator, but before this board and also the Finance Committee to present their plan for the upcoming budget year. They're also required to sign off on their budgets. You know, it's interesting when people put a signature to a document, they live up to it. And we're trying to work hard to make that happen in a consistent and very comprehensive way. We've also, once again, put schedules together on the budget process. We've worked hard also to, as many of us believe, to save the $1 million CETA grant. We outsourced the position of the director to a qualified advisor, Mr. Peter Sanborn, who has helped us maintain that, and we did get our mini entitlement grant this year. We've also worked hard to understand the nuances and the different portions of the healthcare trust audit and the trust fund and how it works. I've worked closely with our town accountant to make sure that that happened in a very expeditious way, meeting not only my goals, but I believe the goals of this board. And that put us on a better financial footing with respect to that account. We've also had a change is in the air, change in the culture and climate of town governance. And I've played a role in it, but not all of it. We have in place right now a new library director, a new director of inspectional services, a new town planner, a new building inspector, a new assistant town accountant, a new assistant harbor master, and a new financial analyst, as I see Mr. Sullivan's in the audience tonight. We've held weekly financial meetings with the FinCom, and to be able to set an agenda that's realistic, to go before that body and to work closely to get our financial plan intact and moving forward. We were also able to, Madam Chair, through you, to set the tax rate on time. This is no easy feat in these difficult financial times. To set the tax rate means that we've saved thousands of dollars in resources on what would otherwise be spent on short-term borrowing. We've worked to reduce, and I listened very clearly to this board and to the Finance Committee, to be able to set forward and reduce our legal expenses. Even in this litigious time, we were able to reduce by 21% below the benchmark of last year, and we intend to work on that closely going forward to finishing out fiscal 2011 and into 2012. We work diligently to establish recurring revenue, working with the leadership team to update licenses and permit fees. It sounds like a small matter, but we need to get the market rate intact. So when we work at the counter, be able to dispense whatever we're doing, we're getting the market rate to be able to keep our local revenues intact. And I worked hard with you and the entire legislative delegation to win, and I mean that sincerely, the Wareham Jobs Bill, which might sound like a small piece of legislation, but one that means a lot to the businesses, the 8 restaurants in town that received that year-round liquor license that's going to help preserve jobs and create jobs for the future. We work to refine a 5-year capital plan in accordance with the charter, on time, and once again, working very closely with the Capital Planning Committee to make certain that we got answers to questions and updated that 5-year plan that's before you moving forward into next fiscal year. We worked to make sure that we could use no-cost or low-cost interns. I see a number of them here tonight, students that have given their time for university credit and produce all kinds of results like the Betterment Improvement Program, strategic planning, energy grants that we applied for, emergency preparedness planning, and a whole slew of other items that we handle on a day-to-day basis. I want to say thank you to those interns. The second area that I think was important was to look at the overall organizational effectiveness of the town. Do we have the right resources in the right places? And I think any city or town would be hard-pressed not to do that these days, particularly what we're facing with the economic challenges that we have. So we decided to set clear organizational goals for all departments. I am in the middle of providing evaluations for all those departments, the first in many years, for the record. The leadership team members now have a set of ideas and concepts regarding strategic planning and input and buy-in that fosters, I believe, greater accountability. Our work's not done in this area. I intend to forge forward in it, working very closely with you and all of our leadership team members. We settled 5 out of 11 collective bargaining agreements. That was in the job application posting that I applied for. And I took it very seriously to move forward, to build a rapport, to work our labor relations front, to reduce our overall financial liability going forward, and to address concerns that we had with respect to the Mass Department of Revenue and our independent auditors. We've worked to build in place and put in place a number of goals with respect to procedures, including fiscal responsibility for the department, settling collective bargaining agreements, and instilling a strong sense of pride in the town's operations and the delivery of services. We worked on organizational effectiveness and continue to do so, because this is a continuous process in my mind's eye. We've worked to review procedures as outlined by the Mass Department of Revenue, and I intend, as I have pledged, to bring anybody with me up to Boston to put that report in front of the commissioner and say, we got it done. We've managed our municipal operations, hopefully with the highest level of professionalism, honesty, and ethics. I'm working on the second Take Pride in Wareham program to bring in new businesses and to spur economic growth, try to rebuild some of the job opportunities that we have, utilizing dozens of donated labor, and to work to make sure that if you take a look at Town Hall, it's a much cleaner place, and I think it's a much easier place to access as it relates to the departments that come under my jurisdiction. We've established weekly department head leadership team meetings and nurtured new educational growth programs with respect to ethics seminars and the open meeting law and a number of other seminars that we've had, planning for 53G accounting, nonprofit management, and once again, the liquor license responsibility for the new licenses that we dispensed recently. We worked on something called the Memorandum of Understanding. You know, a lot of people thought it was just a bunch of alphabet soup. I think it was something that we forged ahead with to get people to understand what their roles and responsibilities are as nonprofits coming in using resources in town. We established better communications with our state government and our representatives, and I'm proud to say to you, I will use whatever resources and powers that I have in my relationships with staff on Beacon Hill or elsewhere to effectuate the types of results that we're trying to get. We've instituted a leadership team accountability, both at Town Hall. If a member of the leadership team is out of the office, they sign out. They tell me where they are. Sounds like a small item, but it's big in the people's mind's eye when they need to get a result from a leadership team member or a sign-off on a particular document. We've reinforced the state ethics questionnaire and requirement and assured compliance with it for the entire leadership team, and overall, hopefully help the overall accountability of the town's operations. The third area I pledge to work on, internal and external communications. Along with the leadership team meetings, which is the full body, we've established weekly individual team member meetings. Each week, each department head comes in and sits with me for a time, unless, of course, they might need additional time, but it usually winds up being between a half hour and 45 minutes. I opened up something called the open office hours, where you don't need an appointment. You can come into Town Hall every Thursday between 3 and 5 or 6 and find the town administrator there. I've logged in over 150 hours, and frankly, I thought I'd get a lot of questions regarding federal and state matters, and I want to compliment the people that have come in. We were able to get the resources in place or answer questions for individuals, everything from snow plow issues to complex zoning matters. I've tried to solve problems in a timely manner, preventing citizens' participation agendas to go on with minor complaints, and tried to involve this board in that decision-making process. And
Thank you for that. You get an A+ on that one.
thank you. We've also created a mobile open-door policy where I've walked the downtowns, been in Onset Village, been walking through Wareham Village to find out after a snowstorm, what are some of the impediments, what exists that we can still work on to get the businesses working to top their top performance. And I heard it all. I heard the good things and I heard the bad things. Once again, I worked with our legislative delegation on the Wareham Jobs Bill. I'm proud of that. We've launched something called the Town Administrator's Report. No, Hollywood's not calling yet, but it is on local cable access TV.
You can't go. If they call, you can't go.
If they call, I think there are royalties, I'll pass them along to the members. But that's an opportunity to try to, and I want to thank local cable access for that opportunity, because not everybody gets to see the Board of Selectmen's meeting this evening, and I wanted to reach out in an external way to the community to be able to give the residents an opportunity to provide input on current issues. And people have come in after they've aired, although I think I have a roving slot. I'm not sure if it airs on Friday night or maybe Saturday morning at times, but the idea is that it's out there and we're working to make it happen. And I want to thank Bob White for that, for the fine work that he does with me. We've conducted comprehensive space study. You know, it's very interesting. When I believe when people come to town hall, they have a bead of sweat coming down their forehead. They know they're going to have to write a check out. They're not going to be happy, and it's not going to be good. I think we've turned that around. We've got people to understand that you can go into the land use office, you can actually put a set of plans out, you can look at the plans that are being discussed, you can talk about them, you can get the conservation agent, which is a desk away, versus being down the hall someplace, and get the town planner, who has worked very hard to make this work, as well as answer any zoning questions that you might have as a local business or a resident in town. We've conducted, conveyed a series of meetings. I intend to call the next one with boards and committees to actually talk about their responsibilities under the open meeting law and what they need to do to keep us in compliance with those laws, and also the state ethics statutes, and work with nonprofit organizations. We've conducted systematic business and education outreach. I point to Wareham Works 2010, and we're launching 2011 very shortly. We've also worked very closely with the property owners at Cranberry Commons Task Force, which makes up a pretty sizable effort to get that task force working on a week-to-week basis. I work closely with the Oak Grove School Cultural Center, and also the Wareham and Onset Business Associations going forward. We've also celebrated, which I think is an important thing. The human heart needs that. It's something where, who would have known, the Wareham Vikings boys basketball team wins the statewide championship. I think they deserve a round of applause, another one. To see the spirited look on their faces as they were basically being paraded down Main Street caught my eye. We've worked to have recognition ceremonies before this body into my office for people who are taking civil service examinations and won their positions. With the chief's help, we made that happen. We've had the Spirit of Christmas Awards, which brought out, in some cases, little-known instances, but big in heart instances for people who have contributed to this community. And I want to thank Chairwoman Donahue for that, as she shouldered the burden with respect to those awards, which we had with the recognition and lighting of our new tree in front of Town Hall. We've had appreciation gatherings for Safe Summer 2010 participants. We've had season-end appreciation potluck suppers for lifeguards and seasonal staff. It's part of our celebration, and I think that's an important part, and it would not have been, I think, a successful year in my mind's eye without that. Where I need to improve, I'm going to let you know right up front, time management. I'll see anybody, any day, any evening, and it throws my schedule off, and I need to get better at it. Is that? Thank you, Steve. I will be trying to work, and this was suggested in the Department of Revenue report, to limit, thank you very much for that, I know, that was a good opportunity. I would have returned the favor. I'm trying to make certain that my BlackBerry is synchronized to my computer. Anybody who's done this, you know that it doesn't always work out, and that I stay on time. I just am very much hamstrung by the fact that I will see anybody anytime if they come to my office. And it might sound like it's something that might be small, but it's big because I do want to stay on schedule, and I do see every member of the board that comes to see me when they need me. I hope I'm there for you. I have been there for you. And I encourage residents to participate in the open office hours because some weeks I just sit there for 2 hours and nobody comes through the door. It's usually a cold Thursday afternoon, but I'll leave it at that. I want to work harder on delegation of tasks. You know, we've had this leadership team in place for a year. Some have different start dates, but it's now time for the leadership team to step up and take care of some of the mechanical items that I find on my desk that will allow me to provide executive leadership and allow the department heads the ability to assess and move forward in their daily and weekly work. And I will reevaluate my schedule of weekly meetings, and I also will be looking at closely, Madam Chair, on the assistant to the board and how we can make the office work more effectively. And I intend to work with my staff, leadership team, on new programs for education and training. You know, you call it professional development, but if you don't put it in place and people don't go to it, it's really not professional development. So I pledge to you to work harder on that, and hopefully using low and no-cost items in this area, we should be able to get some strong professional development. And I want to thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. That's a very comprehensive self-evaluation. I would turn it over to Mr. Holmes. Would you like to make any comments on Mr. Andrews?
You want me to read my list now, Madam Chair? This full packet here.
I hope it's not quite as long.
Do we get to say a few words like he did? He had a lot of words there.
Well, I think he had a lot of accomplishments, and I think that we owe him the opportunity to express them.
That speaks for itself.
Thank you, Steve.
First of all, I would commend you on many of these, and I won't go through them again, obviously, because you just did that. A couple areas that I think you missed was when you talked about the new leadership team. Not only do we have a new assistant harbor master, but we have a new harbor master who you saw the value in. And Mr. Buckminster is doing a fantastic job. He's reorganized that department with berthing schedules for shellfish, and I've heard a lot of comments, good comments about the new permit process. So that's a big yay there. When you talked about recognition, I know I get yelled at a lot about being from Onset, but you know, we had that young man who was the boxing champion who came in that night before the board, and we gave him some recognition as well. And I think we did many others. Overall, Mark, I think you've done a great job so far. I will turn to your attention to this year, though. And you know that one of my issues, and I was really upset about 6 weeks ago when we sat at a meeting and found that the people we thought were doing economic development really don't have a clue, and it's not even in their plan. So, you know, one of the issues and areas that I think that we really need to focus on is economic development. And I'll get right to it. In your time management area of improvement, I think you're absolutely right. You've been here, I guess going on 14 months. You've put a new leadership team in place, and I think now is a good time for them to be going to Pine Street and for them to be going to A Avenue and addressing a citizen's concern about, you know, a barrel in the middle of the street, right? Instead of you doing that, you're the town administrator. And I think that your focus, I'd like to see, is passing that torch now to your department heads so that we'll start getting letters about them like we get about you. Oh, I called, Mr. Andrews showed up, took care of the issue, right? We got 1,000 of those. So you'll need a big raise to pay off all those people. My mailbox is full. I mean, come on. So what I'd like to see, and the success of this is measured by the Board of Selectmen getting those letters from citizens about your department heads, right?
Yes.
So we're there. And I think that, so that lends itself to the economic issue because, you have the new assistant who's in the area to help you with some of those other tasks, so that when you're outside the building, you're doing things like we did with, like Mr. Furry at the Cranberry Commons, like we were out to the Red Farm Inn, like we're visiting the coffee shop in Onset to help them get those businesses going. And we did a bunch of those. We met with the gentleman from the distribution company in working with the West Marine and places like that, right? And so I think that if you spend that much time on those areas and you put together that team that we've been talking about, next year we'll be sitting here, we'll have a lot of new businesses in town, we'll have the mailbox being full about your department heads, right? And I think that's, overall, I think you've done a good job. So I really don't have any complaints other than that issue, and I think that we can deal with those, And there's still some areas with personnel, we have this charter and bylaw thing, so we gotta, and the board has policies in place, and I think maybe sometimes you've crossed the line in some of those areas, finding a statement that works, and we all do that. But I think that after a year, you're getting to know what the charter means, and coming from a big city, so overall, Mark, I think you've done a good job. I don't have any issues. I think that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm not going to take as long as my colleague here, but I'm going to be brief. I usually am. But there's a quote, and the people that read the book they know you by your works. And I think by the works that Mark Andrews has done in this town, he's proven himself. It hasn't been easy. He stepped into the quagmire, but he's pulling it out, step by step. You can't do anything overnight. I pull out a resume that we had in September a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, and I look at my notes, and all I do is write short notes, just like in an interview. And the presentation he just gave, when I looked at my notes, the first one's going to be nice, looks good. Doesn't he look good? Look at him.
Presents himself well, yes.
There was 5
he looks
things.
good.
Talks good and knows his stuff. Doesn't he know his stuff?
Absolutely.
He does know it. Does his research. That's the most important. He does his research. It's not just shooting from the hip. He does his research. He's a hands-on person. If you go to any of the meetings, I go to staff meetings at least twice a month with his staff just to listen in, and everybody's involved. So it's hands-on, and that's what you need. Anybody that's in business knows you got to be a hands-on person. You have to know what goes on around you, and he does. The last one I had on the 5 was team concept. Now, for me to look at this notes that I've written over a year and a half ago, and this man stayed by every one of them. How often does that happen? He has a team. He has us going in the right direction. So we're here to evaluate him. Critique is the easiest thing in the world. We can all be critics. But let's jump on board and make this town, the town of Wareham, what it needs to be and what it will be. Thank you. Thank you, Mark Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mrs. Winslow.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
I'll try to be brief. Mr. Andrews, I do think that you have highlighted a number of areas where you have strengths, and I think that everybody has strengths and everybody has weaknesses. We talked a little bit yesterday about my feelings about constructive evaluations and things like that. One of the things that Mr. Holmes had mentioned was letting the department heads kind of take the reins and run with it. Doing everything yourself isn't necessarily being an effective leader. You instilling in people the ability and the drive to do it themselves and the ambition to keep doing better is effective leadership. And I want to see more of that, because when things go wrong, and they do go wrong from time to time, or a mistake is made, oftentimes you end up falling on the sword, as Mr. Holmes likes to say, for those things, and really that's not your responsibility. The community demands accountability, transparency, and they want things done the way they're supposed to be done. And the best way to really evaluate somebody's ability to do things is to kind of set them free. And, you know, they're going to sink or swim. Mr. Holmes, you know, when he gets to go first, he kind of, you know, takes other people's stuff. But you and I touched on this yesterday also, and Mr. Holmes touched on it with the charter. The charter belongs to the community. We, in a sense, sit here and serve the community. The budget is the community's. And I think that, especially now, with the budget that we have, I think new is great, and determining what the right positions are is a good thing, but I think there needs to be more community discussion about those things. Money's tight. The community has a lot of needs, and we need to look at an overall picture of those types of things. I agree that the time management is that and this is where I'll let off. That's the biggest issue, and that's why I really think that it's time for you to focus a little bit more on the administrator part of things, and let these people that we've hired and we pay, let them get their jobs done. That's all. Thank you.
Mrs. Ekstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, being the senior member of the board who has worked with 5 town administrators in the past 6 years, I think you're awesome. I think, and really awesome. And as you know, I have my master's degree in public administration. I've worked, I've been a student of, and I've worked with other town administrators, and I think you're tops even with them. And I can only say that when I ran for selectman 6 years ago, one of the things, stupid me, naive, stood there in front of, at the OPL and said, you know, this town's just so awesome that I think we should be doing better than we are. And for some reason, we're not. And I don't know why, but we should be doing better. And shortly after I got on the board, a fellow selectman said to me when we were talking about, were we going to get something from the mall? They said, well, you know, we should just be grateful for what we get. And I thought, well, that's the problem with Wareham, you know, is that we're always just waiting and hoping and being grateful for what we get. And we've gone through some rough times. But I think that all of the bad stuff that we've been through, or all of the town administrators that, in my opinion, didn't live up to what Wareham is of value, I think we've got the right person now. And I think we've got someone who, you know, sure, time management, you know, I'm sitting here giving messages to people that I promise I'll call them tomorrow. I think if you're busy and you have a lot on your plate, time management isn't always an issue. And I see that, you know, you at least recognize it. If you didn't recognize it and it wasn't on the list, I might have a problem with it. But I think that, you know, you do so much, you have so much. I think it's absolutely important for you to, as some of my fellow selectmen up here said, to stop passing that stuff off. But I have a very strong feeling that you're not going to stop passing that off and just stick into administration. I think it's going to be you're passing it off because you're going to be broadening into economic development and into getting into new things. And I can only say that speaking to people, like I said, through 5 administrators, I've gotten a lot of calls of people going, when are you getting rid of him? What's the matter with him? I've never heard it about you, Mr. Andrews. I've heard, oh my God, can we keep him for life? Oh my God, he's fantastic. So I just want to say that I'll finish how I started. You're awesome.
Thank you, Mrs. Ekstrom. I'd like to make a few comments, too, if I might. First, I'd like to say that I'll echo the sentiments of the senior member that I've been through 3 town administrators since I was on the board in 4 years. And again, I think that it's been such a pleasure working with you in the last year, especially being chairman of this board and all the responsibilities that go along with that and the time-consuming nature of being chair. Mr. Andrews has been absolutely phenomenal in assisting me and making sure that we try to get almost everything right, despite the fact that he's brand new. And I think that, we could sit here and say, let the department heads shine, let the department heads do their job, absolutely as a next step. But as a very first step, when you're a brand new administrator, you have to get in there and you have to dig in. And that's exactly what Mr. Andrews did. I think that one letter that we got from somebody, I'm just going to read one little line from this, and I think it kind of sums things up. It takes a tremendous effort and skill to change behavior and attitude. Progress is difficult to measure in the short term. In a year, Mark has made significant progress in changing both. And I think that pretty much sums up what Mark has been able to do with his leadership team and the steps that he's taken to have them work together as a leadership team. Mr. Cruz and in his comments mentioned that one of the notes that he put on the application for Mr. Andrews, and I see somebody else sitting there who should be smiling, who also was part of the team who brought Mr. Andrews on board. It was with great trepidation that we looked at the candidates that we had, and because on paper everybody looks great. Mark, you've been here for a year, and as Mr. Cruz said, you proved your paper. If the worst thing we can say about you is that you're like an overbooked doctor trying to see all the patients every day, I think that's pretty doggone good. And I would like to add my congratulations to you for all of the things that you've done this year. It's just, and also I think Mr. Holmes pointed out, rightly so, there are a lot of things on here that aren't even mentioned. There are a lot of things that we could add to it that on a daily basis, you've hit the highlights. And for these to be the highlights for a 12-month period, and many residents have also said to me that, isn't there any way that we can extend his contract? So I think that all around, if I could speak for the board, Mrs. Ekstrom.
Thank you. I would say, Madam Chair, and I don't know if you have any there. There was another thing that we had received several letters, many letters, but several of them said, could you please read this? Please read my letter. Could you please say that? And I don't want to, disrespect anyone, but honestly, we got so many of them that were so positive that we wouldn't have time to read them all. And I don't know how the board feels about this, and this is an awkward way to bring it up or whatever, but we do have, I believe in Mr. Andrews' contract, we do have like an outstanding performance clause. And and I'd like to make a motion for us to enact that, which would entitle Mr. Andrews to a 3% raise.
Is there a second? Excuse me, Mr. Holmes. Do I have to gavel you? I think I am still the chair, even though it won't be for too much longer. Well, I always joke about having to separate you two down there.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. There's a motion and a second to provide Mr. Andrews with the outstanding performance clause that is in his contract that provides him with a 3% raise from now until the end of the fiscal year. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, on the contract now, that was supposed to have been done a year. Now it's been a year and 2 or 3 months. So we are behind on his evaluation because we're supposed to have done it in a year. So I think it is worth it. He's done a terrific job. And like the Chairman Ariel mentioned earlier, my colleague, Mr. Cronin, him and I and the rest of the board was instrumental. I mean, we stood up for him, and it proved its worth. And I thank Mr. Cronin for that, and I thank the board for going along with him. And I thank the board for the support that they've given him. Now we need your support, because without your support, there's nothing here. And we're doing it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Is there anything further to be discussed?
Just a technical question. Was that factored in to the budget for the year?
Well, I'm assuming that Mr. Andrews put the budget together, and he's a pretty smart guy, so I would be very surprised if the 3% isn't sitting there in the town administrator's budget. Would you like to confirm that, Mr. Andrews?
Well, we don't have a position.
I'm sorry?
in our office.
Well, tell the chair that. She's asking you this question.
The money is there. My assumption is correct. The money is available, Mrs. Winslow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next order of business will be, we have some bills. Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one bill from CDM. It's for a monthly estimate for partial payment number 15 to the contractor PGOso and Son for work completed on the subject project from September 1st, 2010 to September 30th, 2010. With the project being substantially complete, the retainage has been reduced from 5% to 2%. CDM recommends this reduction.
Is that a motion?
Not yet. I'll just read in the caption on the note, and now we'll go with the contract. Contract number 1, project number CWSRF 3022, estimate number 15. I just gave you the dates, the period of. Balance due contractor's estimate, $311,829 and 0. Motion made.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Holmes, please.
Through you to Mr. Cruz. I think we didn't have a meeting last week, right? Was it at the?
No, sir, and then because of the weather, they emailed us and said it'll be next month in 2 more weeks, so we'll have that meeting in 2 more weeks.
I saw that one of the issues, because this is still on contract 1, one of the issues is that pump station, and whether or not they got the shields and the parts, and that's why we had moved. If you recall, you remember the warranty? We had them change the substantial completion date from to a month, because we're already into it a month when they had asked us to approve it.
I think, Mr. Holmes, last week, Mike Judici was in, and I think he
Okay.
elaborated on it.
All right, and that was
Said
last week.
Everything is ready to go. We can ask the people if they want to tie in, they can tie in, so they'll have to wait on weather-wise, but,
Okay,
yeah, that was the surge pump on the Main Street pump
all right.
station, and that was all completed. It's ready to go.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome,
Madam
sir.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. Our next order of business is the interviewees for the Westfield Study Committee. If I could just ask them to indulge us for 1 minute, I think we have 3 very quick appointments to make, and then we can continue with the interviews for the Westfield Study Committee. We have a appointment for the Commission on Disability. Mr. Cruz?
Joseph Mulkern, is he in the house? We have an application for you for the Commission of Disability.
Would you
Have
like
any
to?
remarks, comments? Or?
Oh, well, thank you for stepping forward again despite your intention. We must have a good group. We do need some people on the Disability Commission. Does anybody have any other questions for Mr.?
Yeah, the only other question
Okay.
I had is, because we don't have it listed here, how many openings do we have on that? Is it all filled up, or?
We have. Right. It's,
Okay.
there are a number of openings. And nobody's
I
beating
don't
down the
know.
door to get here.
Yeah, I know, I don't have my list with me, but there are openings on the committee.
The only other question I have, Madam Chair, is most of our applications for appointments to committees are, here I go on committees again, are usually done in June, as this says June 30th. So I'm not putting the committee application off, but the idea, we have it in June, it gives people enough to know that in June, we're going to look at all committees, because no committee is in that position in perpetuity. In other words, every year, there's one or two, and the most is three, people that are up for reappointment. So nothing's in perpetuity. So I think that in June, we should have it so we know that everybody is on board, and because we had a lot of conversation of, this person went to 3 meetings, 2 meetings, but if somebody comes unexpected, and all of a sudden we have it right here, no one else may not have known unless they knew somebody on that committee that said. But with yours, it's kind of unique because there's only, as you said, there's only 2. So,
And I believe, Mr. Mulkern, you just moved here about 2 months ago, right? Full-time? Oh, a year and a half ago, I'm
No,
sorry.
but the application has been in.
Well, I was going to say, I didn't realize that you were full-time down here now, so.
and I think the only other person on that is Jim Newman.
No, and I
James
was saying, I
Newman.
think there's like 7 seats on it or so. Well, maybe not 5 seats or something, but there is quite
They
a.
don't have enough to do a quorum right at this point in time, so we can advise the rest of the community that there are additional seats available on the Commission on Disability, and
Yeah, as
and we do
Mrs.
have a-
Ekstrom said, if there is 7 on it, so if we do this one, you still have 6. So just to let everyone know that in June, we do make the appointments for these committees.
okay. Do we have a motion?
Okay, Joseph Mulkern, 20, well, you have to pronounce that
White
word.
Tunis.
Avenue,
White
Buzzard Bay,
Tunis.
Mass. Undersigned Selectmen of Wareham have this day appointed you a member of the Commission on Disability, expire no later than June 30, 2013. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous. Thank you
you.
for
Thank you.
changing your mind. We have an appointment for member to the Council on Aging Board of Directors.
Madam Chair,
Lynn Burrows here, please.
did the information come back yet from town meeting for changing the structure of the Council on Aging?
No, this is for a full member. This is not for an associate member as was voted at under the new charter.
Is there an opening?
Yes, there is. There are several openings from what I understand.
I
Mr.
thought,
Holmes?
I thought-
We discussed this last week at length, if I recall. And it was determined
I'm
that
sorry,
It was determined that
I
there
was looking at something because I think I made a mistake, but what was the question?
the Council on Aging, the opening, if there is an opening,
We got a resignation letter this week from Mr. Boucher.
That was several weeks ago, I
There was-
believe.
Well, we only got it, I think, this week in our email, or last week. So there were 11 members 2 weeks ago, and now Mr. Boucher has resigned. So there's one opening for a full membership on that board.
Okay, that's what I thought. There are two,
Well,
there are
there's
two
an
There
vacancies.
are not 2 openings on that board. There are not.
Oh, okay. Mr. Holmes
Look.
is referring to the person who has not been attended the meetings, who we have to
Right.
straighten that out, whether or not we're going to.
She's
She has-
still-
She has to request a hearing
Legitimately,
before us.
she's still a member of that board. Local chairman cannot be throwing people off of boards. That's not within their purview. Not
Well,
by
but
the
what-
charter.
What I think the Council on Aging Board of Directors should come to
We
the
have
Board
someone
of
sitting at the
Selectmen.
table. Maybe we could hold this discussion till after.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. We will.
So
Okay.
my second question is it prudent for, now that, is it prudent for us to appoint somebody at this point in time with that, since the town voted to make that change, it just hasn't been, I just don't want to do something that turns out to be wrong.
Well, this application has been on file since September 29th. The board, we will leave it up to the Council on Aging Board of Directors to sort out who will be 9 full-time members and who will be the 2 associate members at the time that the charter change becomes permanent. And then that's something that the Board of Directors will have to, and I believe that it was in the article, correct me if I'm wrong, that it would be done through attrition. So that
I don't
will
think-
automatically, it will automatically correct itself through attrition. In the
Madam Chair?
meantime. Yes,
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
going to reiterate what I said earlier. All boards and commissions in June come up for reappointment. Boucher, Robert Boucher, his was, even on the internet, it's dated wrong. They got it 2013, and it was 2011, so he was up this year anyways. I think all appointments to the Council of Aging or any others should wait until June. Let everyone know that it's opening, because they're all opening, all committees. I know you've been up going to all the meetings, but going back to the committee thing again, you're familiar with the committees, you're involved with the committees, you know when the appointment is in. There was another application that came in for the Council of Aging since we talked to you last, and that hasn't been brought up.
Madam Chair, if I could we conduct this
Yes.
young lady's interview and then have our discussion afterwards? Please?
If everybody
Can we
else
do
will
that?
let us do that.
There's no need for this young lady citizen to be sitting here listening to this
Thank
while
you.
she's
Mrs.
waiting to be
Burrows,
interviewed.
would you
she-
like to, thank you, Mr. Holmes, you made your point, we're working on it. Would you like to express your interest in the Council on Aging and the meetings that you've attended and et cetera, please?
My interest in, thank you, my interest in the aging goes back to childhood. I've always been one to develop relationship with elders in the family and neighborhood and things like that. And it's carried over into adulthood, even before adulthood. In my teenage years, I volunteered in a nursing home until I was of age to work in a nursing home, and worked there for, between volunteering and actual work, 3 years before I went off to college. Over the years, I worked a few years back as an EMT, and I worked for a private ambulance company, so most of my more recent association with the elderly professionally was in that area, transporting people that can be weak and oppressed. You know, when you work for an ambulance company, oftentimes the people you're transporting are. But a lot of the people, you know, lived in nursing homes and stuff like that. So through that, sometimes long drives and long talks, I just was made more aware of some of the issues that face the elderly almost 10 years ago, and unfortunately still the same today. And, you know, currently, I'm an advocate at heart. I advocate, as many of you are aware of, and I want to stress that I'm not a professional educational advocate. However, I have advocated for children before, not just in school, in many different settings. And I've done the same for the elderly at a former town that I lived in while advocating for the elderly. before a town board one night. Somebody actually looked at me and said, and this was in regard to something specific, but just said, "Why are you even interested?" You know what? I'm here. I'm interested. I love the group. I enjoy popping in at lunchtime. I often go to their Bible study every few weeks. And, you know, I've just been a part in some volunteering, and I'd love to get more involved and do more for the seniors in our community.
Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Burrows?
If I may.
Mrs. Ekstrom?
Thank you. Mrs. Burrows, I see that your application, we talked about it last week, has been, we received it September 29th. And I know that as the liaison to the Council on Aging Board of Directors, I don't go to every meeting, but my understanding, the few that I've been, like over the past few months of this, the ones that I've been to, you've been there, and I was just wondering, have you been attending the meetings right along since you've applied? And okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mrs. Burrows? Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, I have two questions. Hey, Lynn, how are you? The first question I have goes to this building.
This building, is that what you said?
It's pretty scary when you think about it, yeah. Okay. And there's been a lot of discussion about having the Council on Aging in a more appropriate setting, maybe on one level. And I was wondering if you've had any, since you are around here a lot, I mean, if you've had any ideas or thoughts about moving the group somewhere else that's more conducive to seniors.
Well, in terms of what's more conducive to seniors, location is important. And right now where we are is more centrally located. The center over in Bourne is beautiful. If I remember correctly, it's all one floor. And, you know, it's the thought of being able to have something like that is nice, but in terms of how urgent is it, I think that would be more so maybe based on what the town's government needs are. Like, you know, does Town Hall need to expand over here? Is it going to get pushed out? You know, I'm not familiar with urgency in moving the Council on Aging. I know that there's a lot more programs now than there has been in the recent past. I've been here for 6 years now, here in Wareham. There's tons of programs during the day and also in the evening for people, and it seems to be working out okay. As long as the elevator's working, everything's cool.
Right. Well, let me just share this. I had a conversation, several conversations in recent weeks with different people about, you know, there's a big meeting going on across the parking lot tonight about Walmart. And unfortunately, they schedule it at the same time as our meeting. And Walmart will typically give back to the community sometimes when they have these moves of their stores. And there's been, I've had several conversations now about approaching Walmart and asking them to turn the old Walmart over here on Cranberry Highway into a senior center, and let them donate, you know, the reorganization of the interior of the building. And I was just wondering, as someone who may be serving on the board of directors, how do you feel about that, if I told you that was going to happen?
Well, knowing the town's financial condition, my first concern would be...
Well, Walmart would pay for it.
Well, what about our monthly rent? You said they pay to renovate it, but...
We have to deal with those issues
what kind of
as
rent
well.
would we be looking at?
But do you think something like that is good? Sounds good on the surface?
I would guess so.
Yeah.
I'd want to hear back from the elderly in the town on that, though, too.
Right. No, I understand. That wouldn't be a forced thing. I'm just saying it's an idea that's been floating around. I just wanted to get your thoughts. And the second
It would be nice
question.
to have a lot
Wait,
more
that was 2 questions.
Oh, it
facilities
was.
for them.
Okay.
Actually, 3.
I won't ask any more questions.
You asked
I'm
her how
sorry.
she was.
I got
too.
mine
That's-
too. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mrs. Burrows?
An in-ground pool would be something to reach for there, Steve. Maybe Walmart will do a pool for us too.
Aqua aerobics there.
Yeah,
For seniors,
there you
that
go,
would be
see?
great.
I'd be willing.
Plenty of ideas.
I'd like to entertain a motion if there's one out there, please.
Madam Chair, if you're waiting for me to make a motion, I don't think I'm gonna, first
Well-
you have June 30th. We can make a motion, but June 30th, 2013. I think that's incorrect, because if you're replacing someone that's resigned, you assume their position, which is up. And last week, 2 weeks ago, you came in with the date June 30th, 2011 associate, which it wasn't available. Now, this week, we got June 30th, 2013 to replace the ex-chairman to resign, and his was up. It will be up in June.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Winslow.
just 2 things. I think that we've asked all our questions of Mrs. Burrows, so she can,
Be excused.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that.
okay. Thank you. The second question that I had was, if I heard correctly, there was another application that we've, for COA?
You know what,
No?
if I may,
Was in our mail. We got it this week.
I didn't
Yes,
see
we
it.
did.
well, I'm gonna make a motion to appoint Lynn Burrows as a member of the Council on Aging Board of Directors to a term to expire no later than June 30th. And you're right, if she's fulfilling a thing, but I believe it would be June 30th, 2015, because they're 4-year terms on the Council on Aging, so it would be for that new term.
For the new term. you
Mm-hmm.
said.
And that's my motion.
Is there a second? Is there any other motion?
2015.
They're 4-year terms on the Council on Aging.
I didn't see any applications.
There was another, I think it was Meineke or whatever it was, that one came in.
No, we just did Mr. Milford.
No, there was another one
No,
came in,
it-
especially for the Council of Aging.
For an associate
Let's
member
If
of
you're
the
going for
Council on Aging.
2015, that's a new position, where it was supposed to have been coming in to fill in the position that's
Second
already.
discussion,
I'll second it for discussion since we're discussing.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I see.
Madam Chair, point of order, there's been a motion made, no second. I think we move on.
I just seconded for discussion since we were
Madam Chair,
discussing it, Mr. Cruz.
the chair cannot make a motion, a
The
second.
chair can make a second out of necessity, and that is what I'm doing, Mr. Cruz. I'm making a second out of necessity. And we're discussing it, and you're saying that there's another application so that we should wait, if I hear you correctly. And I hear you also saying that you would prefer that the term be 2011, since that would be filling the term of the previous gentleman who resigned, if in fact we were. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
my suggestion, Madam Chair, is all of the applications are due in June.
No.
We have this
Mr. Holmes, that is-
application,
I
we
mean,
wait till
I'm
June.
sorry.
The board has enough members to conduct their business that they have. They have over 9 out of 11. And if it passes by the state, the bylaws that went in, their membership would be down to 9, which they have a full complement now.
Right, their membership will go down to 9 over time through attrition. And I'm just gonna say this about the Council on Aging. If you've sat here for 4 years like I have, you've seen people come and go. And there's been a rapid turnover in the number of people, on the people who think they wanna serve and then decide that they wanna do something else. And I really think that we should think twice about, after having made this applicant since September 29th, and she's been attending all of the meetings, I think that it would be really a disservice to the Council on Aging and to the town to turn this volunteer away.
And if I may also,
Madam-
that there's, you know, because, and let me reiterate, because we discussed this applicant, because we discussed that she had been doing it for 6 months, someone heard it out there. Well, guess what? There was nothing to stop that applicant from applying for this position for the past year, 2 years, 3 years. And it wasn't until it was spoken at this meeting. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's this subtle thing that we're giving. If someone comes up here and we might not want to jump at the chance of having them, that we're turning around saying, oh, anyone else apply. That's what happened even with the Westfield thing, you know, that we wouldn't even entertain things and we were like, oh, people need to come and apply and apply. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it's not like the Westfield thing was a brand-new committee. Council on Aging's been around for years, and we have been here. Some months we have been begging people to apply. Gee, I wonder why those people didn't apply then. So, you know, like I said, I would respectfully request for the board to appoint this woman who has been showing dedication and commitment to the Council on Aging, and stop playing, you know, petty politics with it.
Madam Chair.
Yeah,
Ma-
ma'am.
Mrs. Winslow, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to take offense to the petty politics comment. This isn't about petty politics, but
Okay, well,
I want to be sure that what we're doing the right way. It was the Council on Aging that came before us with a warrant for fall town meeting telling us that it was recommended that they reduce their board. I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing the right way. And I don't feel confident tonight, and it has nothing to do with the applicant that just sat here, that we're doing this the way we should, and that's my issue. I personally would prefer that we hold off on this until we can get the information that we need and figure out that we're doing this right. This was the Council on Aging's idea. It was their board that presented this idea. They presented it at town meeting. They sold it to the community. This is what they wanted.
Thank you, Mrs. Winslow, and I'll just comment on that as I have commented on twice already. The article passed. The board will be reduced, as they requested, in time over with attrition. This is February. I mean, the other people's terms will run out as time goes by, and through attrition, we will get to the 9-member board with 2 associates. And as I said before, I'm at the risk of repeating myself, people resign from things that they get started on, and there will be other vacancies, and you could find yourself very quickly down to a membership of 5 or 6 people on the Council on Aging. I just don't think that we have the luxury of turning people away when they're sitting here willing and able to serve. So, Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair. I take issue with that petty politics, because we always talk about transparency, honesty, integrity.
Well, maybe we should just try to stick to the issue.
We have elections, applications in June. Everyone knows it's in June that applications are due. So we're giving everybody the same thing in June. So all of a sudden, mid-season, we come up with an appointment.
No,
That's not true, Mr. Cruz.
Not
They
every-
expire in June.
They expire in June. And they're up for re-nomination
Whenever
or
they're
application.
available.
And it's not in perpetuity. No application.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, we're making a mountain out of what's
Okay,
a
Madam Chair,
molehill
may I call
here.
a point of order? You second it, we discussed it, unless we're done discussing, we'll take a...
I'd like to have a word,
Not a
if I
point of
could.
order.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Holmes.
to you and the members of the Board of Selectmen. A couple of months back, you asked me to act as a liaison for appointments. And I certainly hope that my colleague, Mrs. Ekstrom, wasn't pointing that petty thing at me. And I don't think she was. But as you know, Madam Chair, you and I have had several discussions on the phone over these different boards. We have one we're in the middle of dealing with right now where there's issues. And these issues are coming up as we're finding these boards. I actually support Mrs. Burrows for this position on the Council on Aging. I've attended a few of their meetings, and I think that she would do a phenomenal job. My point is that We got to make sure it's right. All I want to do is, I just want to do it right as a board. And you know that I spent a lot of time trying to do that. Last week, I was here. There were no openings on that board by our charter. Mr., what's his name? Boucher. No disrespect intended. We just got the letter that he resigned. Okay? Now we have this issue where they came to us. And to me, it's, I guess it's not an issue that they came in begging to reduce their board, that they couldn't keep a quota. It's not an issue for us yet. I mean, it was approved at town meeting, but none of those things have taken effect, from what I can tell. The town just keeps moving on. I'm not intelligent enough on the subject to know who's supposed to make all those changes. I'm sure we'll find out. But that was in November. We're sitting here in February. I think we're still waiting for a certification from the state. So at this point in time, I believe that there to be one opening on that board, and let's be clear about that. I researched that. The chairman sent a member a letter saying, you are out of here. The lady complained to at least some of the board. I know I have her emails complaining, so let's not say that she didn't complain. The meeting I went to a couple weeks ago, she was there, and the guy told her, you don't belong here. Well, she does belong there. One, she's a citizen, and two, she's a member of that board. The chairman cannot throw people off of these boards. That's some of the problems we're having the last few weeks, Madam Chair, as you know, that some of these chairmen are really overstepping the rules. These boards are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, not by the chair people of these boards. And these boards report to us, as I see it. Now, I could be mistaken. Now, we've interviewed Mrs. Burrows. We got a resignation last week from Mr. Boucher. I haven't seen, either I missed an email or I didn't see it. But my issue is that until we're sure that, we don't have to appoint, we can do it next week, we can do it Saturday, we can do it. Once we're aware of what's going on, I just want to do it right. That's all I care about. But it's not politics for me, Mrs. Ekstrom.
No,
you put me in a position to review these things as they come up, and that's what I've tried to do.
So if I may, Mr. Holmes, how is this getting on our agenda? I mean, it was on here a week ago as an associate. So I assume that being the liaison.
I didn't put
who's
it
gonna-
on the.
right.
I did not
So I
put
had
it on.
assumed that, and then we had discussed it at that meeting, talking about whether there were 9, 10, 11 people or whatever.
Right.
And so I assumed, and I guess
I did not put it on
incorrectly,
the
but
agenda.
I assumed that if this came back on as a full member, that it was reviewed and that there was an opening. Is that
I
correct?
did not put it on the
We
agenda.
discussed last meeting, for clarification, if I might, that I was asked to put it on the agenda last week as an associate member because Mrs. Burrows had been waiting since September. Okay? And I put it before the board as to whether or not they would like to discuss it, and the board decided to bring it off, put it off until this week. So that's why it's on the agenda this week. Just to quickly recap where we are, we have.
And-
That's right. That was part of the issue.
And I had no problem doing the interview this evening, Madam Chair. I agree with you. We spoke about that. And I said that, look, let's get the interview done. I think we embarrassed the woman a little bit 2 weeks ago. Let's get the interview done on our interview night, and then we can deal with the appointment as we need to deal with it. Now, Mr. Boucher just resigned. Now, I know he resigned a while. I was there. And he said he sent a letter to the board.
And he did.
And we only got that letter last week,
I think, well.
after our last meeting.
So we don't have.
I wish I had it with me because I'm sure that it's dated prior to that.
May I, since he's the chairman of
Well, I'm just a liaison. Yeah.
I think it all should go through you anyway.
Committees are.
Is that, yeah, I think that is what we named him, wasn't it? Yeah. Committees are, yeah.
Let's refer to him appropriately.
And that came in since we talked about it 2 weeks ago. 2
The,
weeks ago when that came up, that was for the associate, which
which we corrected because the
Now all of a sudden it comes in.
Council
Well,
on
that's-
Aging Director came forward and made the correction, and if you recall, she came forward and made the correction at the meeting, that it should be a full member, not an associate member. And I don't know, why it was on, I mean, the application doesn't say associate member, the application says Council on Aging Board of Directors, and that's that was before we even had associate members, so, that was a correction that needed to be made, and I don't know if that was an issue with our
This was last Tuesday,
office staff.
last Monday. Forwarded to the COA chair.
That the new application.
I will
we
admit
had
that
in-
I will admit that I missed that
did see
email.
the new application, and I responded to the applicant with a very nice thank you for being interested, as I usually do. So I am aware that there is a new applicant, but I think we're in February. The new charter that we set forth will take place and will happen through attrition, and that's all there is to know about that.
When
I'm
does
not
that
sure
happen,
exa-
Madam Chair?
As soon, well,
Typically, I don't want to get off into a charter thing, but
well, this is the first
typically,
time that
what's the schedule of
There
that?
is no typically on this, Mr. Holmes. This is the first time we're in new territory. But the charter review articles, I believe, have come back as of today from the Attorney General's office. And some of them have to be voted on the ballot.
I saw
I
that.
haven't had a chance to review all of that yet, and I'm not sure how that applies to this particular one. I don't think it has to go on the ballot, because this is a bylaw change and not a charter change.
So
Am
this
I
one came
correct in
back.
that? As I said, I haven't reviewed each one individually.
Do you
But the-
got
remember
an
the
email
article
today.
number?
But
Does
my-
anybody remember the article number? Because I have them right here.
I think we got an email. It was
Two
today we
articles-
got this
two
email from the
articles.
town clerk. Did you see that?
Yes, we did get it today. But the point is that the mechanism for this to move into place and change over from an 11-member board to a 9-member board with 2 associates is attrition.
Right.
So you're going to maintain an 11-member board as long as you have 11 members and until terms start to expire.
So
Okay,
if
so-
it came back today, and I didn't have a chance today to go through all those articles that she sent us.
They didn't come out.
Then why
today.
wouldn't we just appoint her as an associate member? If it doesn't have to go be on the ballot, and it's an effective change that takes place immediately, why don't we give them what they want and appoint her as an associate member? That's what they wanted. The director and the chair came before us saying that because other council on agents across the state were 9 and 2, not 11. I mean, we've had no issues getting people to sign up for the council on aging. It looks like we
Well,
have
we
more
have actually, and if I can go
in the
back.
past.
Well, and that's why they came forward and asked to reduce the number of people from 11 to 9 in the first place, because it has been an issue. It has been an ongoing issue, Mr. Holmes. This is the first time that we've had a full board.
Well, it's good that we have an
In the 4
abundance.
years that I've been on the Board of Selectmen.
We have plenty of other openings. We'll pitch those. But if it came back today, I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to read that particular one.
No, I did not
But-
have a chance to read any of them.
So why don't we just appoint as an associate member?
I'm going through the list right now just to be sure, see if it's on the list that has to go on the ballot.
I don't think there's a ballot vote for that.
This isn't a
The
ballot.
ballot vote
Okay.
was for the sewer commissioners
It's only for the charter changes.
and something else.
But I think even when
There's
it
only
does
one.
come back, we have to
Yeah.
wait until it goes to legislature, since the Attorney General over there.
No, that's
If we
process has
don't,
already
then
been
there
through,
should be-
Walter.
Here we go back to the same old thing. Then it should be announced that there is an application open for people to apply. Now, what we're doing is shutting the door on people that want to come in. If someone comes in and asks for, is their appointment, and we fill them as soon as they come in, because we're shooting from the hip, everybody should be able to apply
Well,
for the appointment.
this
Well, that's
application has
really
been
not.
sitting here since September 29th, and there haven't been any other applications until last week, Walter, so.
Because they were all filled up, so why should anybody apply for something that's filled up?
You know what, this woman applied when they were all filled up, and she still went and still participated in the meetings.
Right.
So you know what, if you
We're
can, you
not
do it.
denying her a position. All we're saying is we're gonna look at everything in June.
So
Well,
the
don't
way
think
I see
anybody's
it,
saying
Madam
we're gonna
Chair.
look at them in June. You're saying that we're gonna look at them in June. Other people are saying other things.
No, I'm just saying that, okay, so we have, through attrition. So you have 10 members, it's debatable, and we'll get that other person in here and figure that out. So we could be down to 9 very soon, right? And then you have this candidate that Mr. Cruz, I missed that email, I'm sorry. And we have Mrs. Burrows, so we have our 2 associate members. So it seems to me like we're in good shape. Why would you appoint somebody for 4 years or 3 years knowing that there's an attrition problem? Just appoint her as an associate member.
And I was saying, I don't have a problem, I don't have a problem with that, but I thought you had just said 10 minutes ago that you had checked it out and that we had 1 resignation, so there was 10, so there was
Right.
1 available position.
So we had a resignation. Well, when we got that letter, it was right after our last meeting. I got that letter in the email. So right now, there are 10 members on an 11-member board, right? And if the articles have passed, we need to get down to 9 and 2. 9 full, 2 associate, right? So we wait and see what happens with the other person, and if she goes, she goes. And then we're down to 9, and we have 2 associates right here, waiting to serve. We got 11 people. Well, actually, we have 12 right now, but maybe we'll be down to 11. And you have 9 and 2. Is it appropriate to appoint to an associate member before, does anything have to happen? We have to change the charter to state 9 and 2, correct, Madam Chair?
No, I believe it's a bylaw change.
Bylaw change, okay, I'm sorry.
It doesn't need to be approved by anybody else. It's already been approved by town meeting and the
Does it have to be
Attorney
published in
General's
any
office.
way, or?
Not to my
Well,
knowledge.
I wasn't aware that a list came back today that said that these were approved. So if, I don't know, Chairman Donahue, I don't know if it was you or Mr. Holmes, would you withdraw your second? I'll withdraw my motion because I don't wanna, if it was approved, I don't wanna, appoint as
A full member.
a full member. I absolutely agree with you on that, but,
I have a thumbs up for the appointment. All I want to do, and I'll just say it one more time, is I want to do it correctly. Just like we had other issues. We were going to do some appointing tonight, we found issues. We're trying to straighten those issues out before we move forward. And that's the point, is to just try to, one board at a time, to get them cleaned up. And
would one of you withdraw the second?
It's my second, and I'll withdraw it.
All right, I will withdraw the motion.
And then
because I don't
once we've done Mrs. Barros's interview, and now all we have to do is wait for that. We can review that email. Maybe we can talk about it Saturday or next Tuesday. We can appoint her at any time now. It doesn't matter. Her interview is done, and we can take care of it as that opening comes up. And then we'll bring the other applicant in on the 3rd of next or whatever, and we'll worry about that one later. Right?
I think that the current member who's been appointed by this board, who was absent for a number of meetings and who has now reappeared at the meetings, is not going to be willing to step down, Steve. And then we're gonna wind up in the same situation that we're in right now, with 1 applicant or 2 applicants and 1 slot.
Well, I have some ideas on that as well. In terms of our meeting with that person, I don't want to mention people's names, obviously, because we don't want to violate any issues. But my recommendation there is going to be that if the person has a change of heart, or the person is now attending the meetings, then unless a medical issue or a vacation issue, if there are any further absences, then we would automatically, put some conditions on that person staying there or going. And maybe she's not interested, but we
Madam
haven't
Chair.
had that discussion yet, and we need to do that.
Can we move on the agenda?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's up to the chair.
I'm
Is it-
asking.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. We spend a lot of time on this stuff during the week to try to make sure it's done right. and
Right,
I
and
don't
that's
want
why
to do
I
it.
thought we were all set here tonight.
And I don't want to do it
I
wrong.
thought we were going to be doing the interview and making the appointment and moving along and letting the rest of the issues regarding the charter, the change to the bylaw, take their course. And I really didn't think that we were going to get into a huge, long discussion about June, in February, and other issues. I thought it was going to be a simple appointment, so I apologize for taking up so much time, but, and thank you, Mrs. Burrows. We will be continuing to address this issue in the future. We have a request from the town clerk to reappoint Dorothy Taylor of East Edgewater Drive as a registrar for the town of Wareham, effective April 1st, 2011 until March 31st, 2014.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. We'll move to the interviews for the
Are you
Westfield
skipping
Study
over
Committee.
E?
Excuse me?
You skipping over E?
I'm going back to B,
Oh.
if that's all right, since we did C and D before B, and the B people have been very patiently waiting. Apologize to you for the length of the discussion. Is Mr. David Nilsson here, please? Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for your interest in the committee. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your qualifications?
Sure. My name is Dave Nilsson. I live at 171B Great Neck Road in Wareham. I've lived here for probably a total of about 9 years. Several years a while ago and 6 years most recently. I have been in the construction industry for over 40 years. For over 25 years of that time frame, I've been an executive in the construction industry. I'm somewhat retired at this point, so I have a little bit of free time on my hands. I feel that I have a lot of the credentials that would be required to assist the Board of Selectmen in proceeding with the project, the Westfield project, as it unfolds. I have developed RFPs, I have responded to RFPs, I've developed bid packages, many bid packages, and I've responded to many bid packages in my career. During the course of my career, I've put in place over $1 billion of construction. That's quite a statement, but that's a true statement. I feel that I come to the board with a clean slate. I have some knowledge of the Westfield project, what I've read in the paper and what I've seen published by the town of Wareham. And so I feel I come with a clean slate and a clear frame of mind in order to be able to be of service to the town of Wareham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nilsson. Would anybody like to ask Mr. Nilsson a question? Mr. Holmes? Start with you.
Yes, good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And yourself?
Very well. I just have a simple question, and that is, in terms of, have you dealt with RFPs before, preparing, reviewing, and carrying them out?
Yes,
If
I
you
have.
could just give us a little background on that.
I've worked extensively as a contractor in responding to RFPs from clients and architects, and I've also represented clients as well on a consulting basis, preparing RFPs and putting those out for response by other contractors. And I've also done the same thing relative to bid packages. I've worked on both sides of the street, if you will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
No, Madam Chair, I appreciate you stepping forward, and one remark you made, I think it turned the light on. You came here, you're coming forward with a clean slate, and that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Open minded. One thing we need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ekstrom?
Thank you. Mr. Nilsson, have you had a chance to look at the previous RFP that we put out for Westfield?
I have not seen it, no.
Okay, it's on our website, I believe it still is, so if you want to take a look. And for senior affordable housing, seeing you haven't had a chance to look at, just, I guess, what would you think the most important component of an RFP for that would be?
For affordable housing?
For
Well,
senior affordable housing?
For senior, I think a lot of it has to do with the ability of, I'm assuming here we're going to be asking developer to come in and
Just speak into the microphone, Mr.
Just a
Nelson,
little
please.
closer,
Thank
sorry.
you. Should work.
how's that? Is that better?
Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm assuming that the town is going to be asking a developer to step in and take over that process and build it. And so in terms of the process of developing the RFP, I think that it's important for us as a group or a committee to find a developer that's going to actually be able to be solvent, number one, have plenty of deep pockets, and the experience that they're going to bring to the table relative to that I think is paramount. You're not going to be looking for someone who has a short track record. You're going to be looking for someone who has deep pockets and they have extensive track record in that aspect of construction and operation.
Thank you. And how long do you think the process should take from the start to actually getting out the RFP?
What, if I may ask, what is the status of the RFP at this point? I've read that there's been some work done on an RFP at some point in the
Well,
past.
we had an RFP and it went out,
Mhm.
and that's why I was asking if you had a chance to look at that one. It went out, we got, I believe it was five projects. It went to town meeting, and town meeting wanted to, rather than pick something or allow the Board of Selectmen to do it, they had a study committee. In that study committee, they decided that they wanted to add a recreation component to the Westfield project, because we do have some recreation fields up there that the town had developed. And so essentially, this committee would be reviewing the RFP, making recommendations on what to add as far as that recreation component to it, and then putting it out. So there's, I guess, like the framework is already done, and then your input for that, and then back to us for us to put it out. So
Okay. And the RFP, is that going to then develop into a bid package?
Yes.
Is it going to be
Yes,
a separate operation altogether?
I,
So you'll go out to maybe 7 or 8 developers, narrow it down to maybe 3 to 5 or whatever that number is going to be, and then go out with a bid package. Is that the correct
no, I
assumption?
believe that,
Put out the RFP and the bid package at the same time.
I would say the image.
So it's all going to be at the same time?
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
all in the
all right.
same
I've seen it
package.
done both ways.
Yeah, I know,
That's-
it
yeah.
will be the whole, 'cause I
Well,
was
that's
just
how we
thinking-
did it last time,
Okay.
Mr. Nelson.
Right.
All
So,
right.
I mean, that doesn't mean that that's how your committee would decide to
No,
do it
I've
again.
I've
but-
actually done it both ways, but I think the way I just mentioned it was maybe a little more familiar to most contractors, let's put it that way.
Okay, and so how long do you think that would take to get?
I would
RFP.
think that, is the committee going to meet every other week? Do we have a sense at this point? Has anything been
I believe that what we're gonna
discussed?
do is we will probably have, we'll probably set up the initial date, and then you guys will decide. So if you could just, like, even meeting-wise, not necessarily time-wise.
Okay. And as far as the time frame goes, I would think probably 2 to 3 months would be adequate
Okay,
to put that together.
Thank
It's
you.
a lot of work, but I think that certainly that could be done in that time frame.
okay. And then we had brought up the idea of having a member of the review committee coming to the Board of Selectmen at our meetings to give us updates. Would you have any problem with that?
None whatsoever, no.
Excellent,
No.
thank you very much.
Great
Trying to
suggestion.
stick with my questions. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mrs. Winslow?
I just have one question. What is the one project, and I say project for you even though for other applicants I've said project or
I'm sorry,
accomplishment.
I couldn't hear the
The
question.
one project that you've worked on that makes you stand out in the crowd of applicants before us?
One project, well, that's a good.
Accomplishment, project,
Yeah.
something that you've done that when we sit and deliberate, all these folks that have sat before us makes you stand out.
Have you had a chance to review my resume?
Mhm.
Okay. In my resume, I make reference to a project that I've most recently completed, which is a project for MIT in Cambridge, for the Sloan School of Management. And that project was a $150 million project. And I had a staff of roughly 25 to 27 people under me on that project. And we had over 300 craft people on the job for a period of 3 years. Very successful project for MIT. It was a very intense project with deep slurry wall foundations and 4 levels of parking below grade and 6 levels of building above grade, over 550,000 square feet of finished building. And that's no small task for anyone to complete, even with a large staff. And so I think that says a lot about my credentials.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Nelson, I have no questions. Your resume does speak for itself. I appreciate you taking the time to come by and ask us if we would like your help, because it's nice to get some people with really good experience. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next applicant this evening in your packet is Mr. Powelatis. He sent an email to the office saying that he couldn't be with us this evening. I think his application also speaks somewhat for itself. He was with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Office of the State Comptroller and Auditor's Department, has extensive experience with contracts and review of contracts. The next applicant after that is Michelle Rose. Is Michelle Rose here? Thank you for your patience. Appreciate your waiting this evening. I think if you sit at the other microphone, we'll be able to hear you. Do you give us a brief background and interest in the Westfield project?
Yes, I've been living in Wareham for 6 years, and I have an extensive background in both the development of subsidized housing and also in writing proposals. I have probably worked as far as development of subsidized housing on about 20,000 units. Some of them were in New Bedford. Most of them were in the Boston area. I've worked for most of the development companies, major development companies, like the Wind Company, the Drucker Company, Peabody Construction, and I have I'm working as a consultant now, grant writing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holmes?
Good evening, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. My question just goes around experience in, have you developed RFPs before?
I've developed RFPs. I've developed responses to notifications of funding availability from HUD, RFRs, all of those.
And I understand you're a wizard with grants, is that true?
That's what I do for a living.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz?
No, Madam Chair, I have no questions. Your resume looks good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ekstrom?
Okay. Have you had a chance to look at the RFP?
No.
Okay. Seeing you haven't, what would you think would be the most important component of an RFP for senior affordable housing?
I would think that there would probably be a number of different components that I'm thinking about, and that is, and I'm not quite sure since I haven't looked at your RFP, whether there are any kinds of social services that are attached to the housing. I think for a population like the elderly, I think you need to have some sort of activities. I think you probably need a number of social services. I've worked on development of housing for special populations, including the elderly. One of the programs that I work for is called Mission Maine. and it's 380 units. Part of it is elderly housing in the Mission Hill section of Boston. And one of the things that was really important when we went for funding from HUD was we were able to secure $5 million in social services for the population, including a number of activities for the elderly. I think that's really, really important. I think the housing can be really amazing. I think that you can have all kinds of handicap accessibility, but I also think that you have to have some kind of social services. I understand from what I've read in the papers that Westfield is not close to a lot of the like the Council on Aging and other programs, so I definitely think that
2.3 miles.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know anything about, the transportation that you have, but I do think that for a population like the elderly, you're going to need some kind of something in there that's going to talk about services for the elderly within on-site services.
I will just respond that if you read the RFP, the template that's out there that was put out for bid the last time, you will find all of those components were covered in the RFP. They may need some tweaking, but they are all there. They were all included as part of the last RFP, which basically focused on senior affordable housing component of the project. The new components of the project are the recreational fields and the development and maintenance, rehabilitation and maintenance of the recreational fields, because it's a multi-use area. The Westfield property is proposed by town meeting article to be a multi-use area, where there would be the senior affordable housing, the recreational component, which is there already, part of it, but we'd like to see it rehabbed, and then there's the open space component. So, but like I said, those issues are very important. I agree, and I thank you for bringing them up. Mrs. Ekstrom?
How long do you think the process will take to get out an RFP?
I probably agree with Mr. Nelson. I would say a little bit longer. He said 2 to 3 months. I think with when you're talking about a variety of different components, probably 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and I think I have one more question. We discussed having a member of the board come here to our meetings, a member of your committee to come to our meetings to appear before us and discuss any issues. Do you have any problem with that?
After tonight? I'm just kidding. No, I don't.
All right, thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you. I just have one question. What's the one project accomplishment? What makes you stand out in the crowd?
Well, probably one of the smallest developments I ever worked on was AIDS housing in New Bedford. It was the first AIDS housing that was ever developed in New Bedford, and I not only secured all the funding for the construction, but I also secured the funding for all of the social services. It still stands today. It's called the Luis Martinez House. It's small, very small, but I think that's probably the proudest thing because I was involved in every single aspect of the development of that program.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any last questions for Ms. Rose? Thank you again for your patience this evening and for offering to help the board. Mr. Franklin can't be with us this evening. He has 3 sick children with strep throat. We didn't want him to bring his germs with us. He served as a member of the Westfield Study Committee, and as such feels he has would like to bring some continuity from the committee forward. Mr. Smith, who was also on the Westfield Study Committee, withdrew his application in favor of someone with more RFP experience. He felt that his experience, although applicable to the study committee, was not as technical as it should be to advise the board on an RFP. I thanked him and invited him to come and attend any of the meetings of the new committee, so that he would be able to maybe give them insight as to what the Westfield Study Committee had in mind. Next applicant this evening is Mr. Joseph Mulkern. We just met him. He's jumping in with both feet, I see.
No, I didn't send any resume in.
Would you like to explain your interest in this committee and
Yes.
what your
Well,
areas of expertise
I'm a
might be?
retired plumber. I was in the plumbing and heating business for 45 years. Excuse me. And my expertise is in, I think when I started in the business here, we were doing a lot of work in Boston, putting in new apartments for elderly people, affordable since 1965. Like I say, I worked for the biggest contractor was probably Peabody. The contractor I worked for, I was in the union, Boston Plumbers Union. I worked for E.M. Duggan Company out of Canton, and their expertise was in building these affordable units for senior citizens and public housing.
Thank you, Mr. Mulkern. Mr. Holmes?
Yes, good evening again.
Good evening.
I see that you were, can you, have you ever worked on developing, reviewing, or carrying out any RFPs?
Yes,
in
sir.
your experience? If you could just elaborate.
Yes. Before I retired, I went out contracting, and I signed on with the Boston Housing Authority, and fortunately, I was assigned to maintain 9 buildings in the Boston area there, high-rise, most of them were high-rise, and I got to know a lot about the needs of the senior citizens, and as a plumber, I made a lot of the old people happy because they got new appliances and things like that. And also, I got on the study committee as a contractor, and my suggestion to the Housing Authority was to get rid of all these antiquated heating systems, put in handicap toilets, which they didn't have in a lot of these buildings, and in the 9 buildings that I maintained, all 9 buildings got new heating systems. We went from oil to gas, and they're more efficient because, as you could probably see in Boston, most of the people left their windows open all winter long because they couldn't control the heat. And with these new systems, it was far more economical. And also with the putting all these water-saving devices, one bill in particular, the manager came to me and he saved $40,000 just by going around modifying the toilets, putting in these low-flow toilets. So there is a way of saving money by putting in these new type of appliances, lights and whatever, and I have expertise in that.
Thank you. Mrs. Ekstrom?
There we go. Okay. Have you had a chance to look at the RFP?
No, I have not.
Okay. And although you can't talk to us specifically, what do you think the most important component of an RFP for a senior affordable housing?
Well, from what I hear from what you people have said, I guess the RFP is just about done. So the main thing is just getting, like I say, the outside activities, and the seniors do need things like that. In Pembroke, I was on the Housing Authority, and we had three units in there, and they're all senior citizens, and their main need, the director, she more or less handled all the internal things that had to be done, cutting the toenails and things like that I didn't get involved with, but I got involved with her, and also being on the on the committee in Pembroke there, the senior citizens, they didn't have the buildings were built in the 1960s. They didn't have handicap accessible, and it took 3 years to get the handicap toilets installed, and the doors. That was the main thing I had with the elderly people. They couldn't get into their apartments because they weren't handicap accessible.
Okay.
And with the CPC funds that we got from the town, we did it. It took me 3 years, and the price of the doors went up threefold in 3 years. So when you get the money, you should go and do it.
Okay, and how long do you think the process will take from the time or the number of meetings from first meeting to getting the RFP out?
Well, myself personally, I don't think it would take more than a couple of months. And being retired, I can be there wherever they want to meet, whatever they want to discuss. So I'm on this thing here. My sister-in-law said, "You're doing nothing in the town there. Get out and do something." So that's why I'm up here applying.
Okay, and as we had discussed before, that the Board of Selectmen, we discussed having a member of the review committee appearing before us on a weekly basis to let us know what's going on. You wouldn't have a problem with that,
No, I
would
would
you?
no problem.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
I just have one question. What's the one project or accomplishment for you that makes you stand out in the crowd of applicants?
Well, I think my main accomplishment, like I say, when the Housing Authority in Boston asked me as a contractor to get on a committee, which most of the other men on the job, the plumbers that I work with, they didn't think I should be there, So, but I got on this committee, and I think getting all these buildings updated and fixed, handicap-wise and heating-wise, I thought I accomplished quite a thing there before I retired.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for offering to volunteer your time and your expertise to
Thank you.
advise the board. Have a good evening. And our last applicant this evening, she's apparently still not feeling well, or Mrs. Winslow?
Yeah, Mrs. McDonald had a personal issue tonight, so she wasn't able to attend.
Okay, thank you very much. That wraps up our interviews. Under any other town business, we'll take up the matter of making some appointments. The next thing on the, I'm gonna just jump right down to the application from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, since these folks have been so patiently waiting this evening. Again, I appreciate your patience.
Oh, my pleasure.
Like
Thank
to
you.
introduce yourself and
My name's Liz Strawn, and I'm a Senior Development Manager for the National MS Society. And every year we have an annual 2-day bike ride called the Cape Cod Getaway. It's held the last weekend in June. This year it's the 25th and 26th. And it's a 2-day ride starting in Boston and on their second day ending in Provincetown. So on day one, we have a 2-route option, one of which is 100 miles from Quincy, and their end point on day one is Mass Maritime. On that 100-mile route, coming into Mass Maritime, they will go through Wareham. It will be probably about 90 miles into their route, so they'll be pretty much staggered out along the way, and there'd be about 400 of our 2,000 participants on this one particular route. The route is covered with support vehicles. We're in contact with all the local police departments to have safety where safety is needed. That is the utmost concern for us, and we're just wishing that Wareham would approve us to go through.
Mrs. Winslow.
I just want to make a motion to approve the application from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, care of Drew Davis, 101A First Avenue, Suite 6, Waltham, for the use of town roads to hold an MS 150 Cape Cod Getaway Bike Tour on Saturday, June 25th, 2011, and Sunday, June 26th, 2011, and wish it luck.
Thank you very much.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you.
And be safe. Next, we have an application from Max Performance for the second annual triathlon. Is there someone here representing this group?
Madam Chair, if I could.
Mr. Andrews?
Briefly, Tim Richmond has been working with my office and has been providing us with a number of documents and also making certain that the all of the planning and preparation phases are in place. And also, I believe he's also contacted the Community Events Committee, been working with them. This, if you were not there last year, was a very splendid event in onset. You could not tell the difference between the time that they set up and the time that this event was over. Not one piece of paper, not any anything. It was just like putting it right back in place. The event didn't actually occur, but it did, and it brought in hundreds of individuals and families to watch, and I would recommend approval, if possible, this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the application from Max Performance, care of Tim Richmond, 57 Prospect Ave, Norwood, Mass, for the use of the Onset Bandshell and Town Pier, Onset Beach, and use of town roads for their second annual triathlon Escape the Cape Wicked Onset Triathlon to be held on June 4th from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. with a rain date of June 5th, 2011.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Mrs. Ekstrom?
Just briefly, on the application, it has parking arrangements, proposed lots, Hammond School, 10th Ave, and Wareham Ave lot, and Shell Point lot. As far as the town lots, I mean, that would be up to us. Hammond School, I would recommend that we get approval because it's the school committee or the school department that's in charge of that property. And also, Mr. Holmes, I'm not sure if it was this event, but wasn't there, I think it was this one, wasn't there an event last year, and it may have been this, that where we had talked about, or you had come up with the idea of actually parking out on Cranberry Highway and then getting some type of a shuttle in there? Just
Wow.
because I know that this in and of itself, it takes up pretty much the whole parking lot on the pier for their thing. So that might be something else that we look at for this.
Your memory, through you, Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes, please.
Your memory is outstanding. Wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, actually, this was our first weekend of the parking ride last year. And when our volunteers showed up at the lot across from Lopes Field, it was full. So I would, as part of Mr. Andrews' summer 2011 program, there was some revenue there we could have captured. I'm not trying to be, but I mean, that lot, we still have to have some discussions about who controls that and who gives that lot away, because they really ate into your program last summer when they gave these event people that lot, and they put a couple hundred cars in there for free. Or they made the money when that's town property. And I know you've been looking at addressing it, so. But other than that, I did see this gentleman a few weeks back in Town Hall. And I think last year we had 500, I want to say. Wasn't it? 500 participants, I think.
Would you, Madam Chair?
It's a wonderful event.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned with the parking issues that.
Right.
Sure.
Especially seeing we lose that lot for the event.
Yes.
And then all the other ones. So just as far as, I have no problem with the event. If we could just kind of see if we can work with them to make either arrangements elsewhere, approvals with the school department and stuff. So I don't want to, I don't want people to be thinking we're stepping on their toes by approving this. So, thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous. Thank you. We'll just go to the leadership team.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Report.
Through you, if I could bring up Chief Stanley, who's coming up on January 21st, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency sent out a notification that they would be putting forward initiatives with regards to statewide municipal mutual aid. And I reviewed the proposals that are intact. There are 3 parts to it. The first part is for the police department. The second part would be for the fire safety component. And the third part, which is still being developed, which would be for mutual aid with regards to the Department of Public Works or municipal maintenance or whatever you want to dub it as. So the first part of it, once again, this was an initiative under Chapter 188, which is the Municipal Relief Act that the governor put forward and passed by the legislature. And it would provide cities and towns with the ability to provide mutual aid to neighboring communities when there is an emergency. And I think this fits in very nicely with what we've tried to put forward with regards to some of the regionalization and programs that we put forward. It works on, costs are associated, are borne by the sending community with the understanding that if and when the sending community needs aid, that they would be provided with this level of support. And it kind of harkens back to the really the spirit and intent of the municipal aid package, which was to provide this to cities and towns and do it legally. And once again, which we're trying to put this forward with respect to mutual aid agreements. And I have asked Chief Stanley to come forward it's an opt-in proposal, so you can opt in or you can opt out. And maybe, Chief, you can give us a little bit of your thoughts on it.
No, I'm in full agreement. My position is, and the Massachusetts Police Association position is to opt in on this. Statewide, we're trying to do this currently.
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any questions regarding this issue for either the chief or Mr. Andrews?
I just have one quick
Mr.
question,
Holmes.
Madam Chair. Thank you, through you to the chief. Chief, how does liability work if a Wareham officer or fireman is over in Bourne and something happens if they're on this part of this program?
What happens is your 111F benefits for injury on duty or killed in the line of duty still comes back to this town. Wareham. So if I have an officer located in Bourne and he has an injury that's career-ending, we own it.
Right.
Wareham does. If he goes over there and does something inappropriate, we still own it. But as you know, with civil and vicarious liability, everyone's going to get hit in a lawsuit. So if he's over there, we're getting sued, they're getting sued, everyone's getting sued. But we are still responsible for our police officers' actions,
right,
as well as any injuries or death.
In reverse, if a Bourne police officer were in Wareham and got hurt or did something, then Bourne would carry the ticket on that.
That's
we wouldn't be
correct.
responsible for that.
And similarly, even under formalized mutual aid agreements, they're called law enforcement councils, which NIMLIC, Northeast Mass Law Enforcement Council, covers 50 cities and towns. As I was in charge of SWAT and tactical up there for 25, 30 years, those incidents came up once in a while, but it was very much give and take. You'd end up in all sorts of situations. We actually have that right now, somewhat in Wareham, where we are members of SEMLEC, Southeast Mass Law Enforcement Council, and we have officers assigned to regional forces, search and rescue, SWAT.
Right.
So we're participating. This is to formalize it statewide.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chief.
Madam Chair, may I make the motion? Mr. Andrews recommended though.
May I ask a question just before the motion's made? Because we don't own our fire departments, is this something that we would have to send a letter to the Onset Fire District and the Wareham Fire District and ask their prudential committees, which is the district's Board of Selectmen, to consider this as well?
Through you, Madam Chair, you are correct.
Thank you. Just because
And
I
we
don't
are in
want to,
that
I don't want to
process.
make promises that we have no authority to keep, so.
No, we would be opting in, the Board of Selectmen would be opting in just for the police department and the EMS portion. The fire departments would have to opt in them at the district meetings or with their prudential committees, is my assumption.
Madam Chair, through you, Member Ekstrom is right on target, that they would have to make that independent vote to opt in at the appropriate time, and we are working on that.
Thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
I make a motion for the board to approve and authorize the town administrator to act on behalf of the town of Wareham to join an agreement according to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 4J, Public Safety Mutual Aid Agreement effective February 15, 2011, and to authorize the town administrator to certify said approval and authorization on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and notify the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency of Wareham's participation in this program.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous.
Just if I may, Madam Chairman, two quick things. Number one, out in the parking lot when you come in tonight, several of the members were able to see it. It just got finished up today, and we wanted to get it down here for you. And I apologize for not really any advance notice, but you would have noticed two brand-new all-terrain vehicles and a marked trailer. Those pieces of equipment were purchased, Officer Smith was out there, those pieces of equipment were purchased with a federal grant for $22,000. A lot of work went into that project by Officer Smith. He did an awful lot of research. He prepared grants and documentation and really learned a lot, and he's been extremely valuable to me. He really took the bull by the horn and ran with this project. research the best equipment to have and so forth. You will find these pieces of equipment extremely valuable. We've developed a team. We're having training from the environmental police. And this will be used on search and rescue type situations. I mean, with all the bogs we have around, with all the different open areas that are tough to get to for our officers. But in addition, it is going to be a tremendous public relations tool that will also be able to assist in policing all of our beaches and wetlands this year in the shoreline. So it's going to be a real asset to the police department and tremendous public relations, working with kids and so forth. And they're a great tool. So I really look forward to that project getting underway.
Thank you, Chief. Congratulations, and please express our thanks to Officer Smith.
I will.
They're
Madam Chair.
beautiful. We went outside. They're beautiful, and congratulations.
Thank
And thank Officer Smith for us.
Now, there's two, so the next time I do a ride-along, Officer Smith can ride one, I can ride the other. Is that how this works,
I
Chief?
don't know. You'd have to get in the back.
Madam Chair,
I'm signing up for summer seasonal. I told him.
Mr. Andrews, please.
did we want to go to item number 2 briefly for the chief to give us an update
Yes, please.
with respect to, on Friday, February 11th, Chief Stanley was authorized to commence with Operation Safe Streets. He had put this program together involving numerous law enforcement entities throughout the state, including the state police and other offices. I called each of the members of the board to express that this plan was moving ahead. Hopefully, it was in a timely way. And Chief, maybe you can give us a matter on this, give us an update on this matter.
I attended a meeting here in this room a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, with Brenda, Jane. Steve was here, and we were very fortunate to have members of probation and parole present. So we had a discussion afterwards. We exchanged business cards, had a discussion afterwards about some of the problems we were faced with, and we were very much surprised to find that we had a couple of hundred active warrants in Wareham when we did the research through our partners in the criminal justice system. We developed a quick plan just over a 48-hour period, and I have to thank Lieutenant Kevin Walsh, who really took the lead for me and worked diligently to put this thing together. I directed Kevin who I wanted involved, how I wanted it, and he put his nose to grindstone and delivered in a tremendous way. We brought in probation, parole. We brought in the state police, who were tremendous assets to us. They brought in not only the Violent Fugitive Task Force, South Team, but also the State Police Community Action Team, which are marked units and unmarked units, which assisted on traffic stops and so forth. And over a period of 32 hours, the police department was completely energized. The officers were out there in full force. We made 48 arrests, 10 of which were placed under arrest by Mass State Police. Arrests were made due to outstanding warrants, many of which were serious felony warrants. The warrant charge included such things as assault with dangerous weapons, failure to register as sex offenders, domestic violence, and many other warrants. But in addition to that, we developed a tremendous amount of information during those arrests about other people who were wanted and where they were, to really clean up the streets. So the officers, the patrol division, uniforms, the detective division, worked cooperatively with these other agencies and had tremendous success. In addition to that, there were a tremendous amount of citations issued. The citations that were issued were a result of traffic enforcement efforts. Wareham police officers stopped a total of 177 vehicles and issued 128 citations, 20 of which were issued as written warnings with no attached fines, and 49 verbal warnings were issued. The state police had similar numbers. So as in any typical traffic stop, people were given warnings when necessary and given complaints when they felt it was necessary also. The safety of the Wareham residents was of paramount importance. We worked with residents. We told people what we were doing. We didn't have any issues of violence when we were arresting people, which was tremendous. And the operation was a tremendous success. And even better than that is, and Walter, I'm sure you're going to be looking at this, there were 208 hours of overtime on the Wareham Police Department side, and I'm happy to report that the 208 hours came from municipal police staffing grant.
Nice.
So we are totally reimbursed on that. Nice. Only because I know you'd be asking. But
Walter's our watchdog.
he is, and he's been great at it, and we've worked together a lot on this project. But it was a tremendous success. I think it was done in a formal fashion. There were operation plans for every facet of it, and it was done professionally by accreditation guidelines. People had assignments. They knew what their assignments were. Officer safety was paramount, and it wasn't just a group of people running around haphazardly. So it was a great success. We have a lot of other things planned to really try to bring things in line here, and I look forward to a couple other operations we have planned.
Thank you, Chief. I'd just like to say that the meeting that the Chief was referring to was part of the Increase the Peace, Stop the Violence community planning rally, and that that Mrs. Ekstrom put together initially, and this was a great next step for our law enforcement agents and also for our courts, to get our courts involved. And the one thing I'm just curious about in terms of the traffic stops, how many of them were for speeding? Do you have any idea? Because every time, I mean, I just almost got killed on Main Street. Crossing the street to get a sandwich. I mean, people think that Main Street is a 40-mile-an-hour road, and
Yeah.
It's not?
128, and we've got a breakdown for each of you that Mr. Andrews is passing out. But total 128. Let me see. I don't know if I have that exact breakdown. There's a breakdown here, but I can get it.
I was just curious,
Yeah.
and to use the opportunity to ask people to take it a little slow out there. Child could dart out from behind a car. Speed is a major factor in accidents, and we really do have people are going way too fast on Minot Ave, Main Street.
And our officers receive tremendous public support for this. We get all sorts of phone calls to the station, people calling, all sorts of support. It was very successful, and we brought the media in also to report on it after the fact, in an effort to get the word out, because it's important, because it can save us a lot of aggravation in the future. Get the word out that this is not a safe haven. Move out of here if you are, in fact, a law violator, and let the rest of us live in harmony. And I know, Steve, you and I have talked about some of these operations as well over the past, and I heard you, and when we had this opportunity with these partners, it was a great chance to move quickly.
Yeah, and you know, and I think it's fantastic. I've received no negative comments. I read something in the paper, but you know, Chief, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? A couple of weeks ago, everybody wanted your head because somebody stabbed somebody. Then you go out and do your job and you put this thing together. I think that's great. I like that stuff. And we talked about that last Thursday night, didn't we?
Absolutely.
And see, and you can't do it all the time. You just catch them all by surprise, and you took those people off the streets. So I'm looking forward to the next one.
We have a couple of great opportunities coming up, working with our federal partners as well, and I look forward to that. Yep.
Keep the pressure on.
Thank you.
And it's a great job to all the offices.
Yeah, they were. I'll tell you, I've never seen so much excitement with them. They really enjoyed it, and you know what I'm hearing from all of them is that they enjoyed so much working with the probation, parole departments, and the state police, and they've developed these relationships and exchange of information now, and that was so important for them because they really got contacts. They were out to breakfast together the whole bit, and it really worked out very well, and it'll increase our safety in our community tenfold.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
Item
Chief.
number
Thank you for
3.
such a great job. You and the men. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could continue, I know Derek Sullivan was here earlier, and I know he had a family commitment. so maybe I can put him on for the next time to be introduced.
That would be very helpful, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On item B, Madam Chair, I just wanted to report back, and I know members Winslow and Ekstrom were there with me tonight. We also had a meeting last Friday of the Budget Review Committee, and a number of different ideas are being put out there. Obviously, to make certain that we can come up with a recovery plan for the budget proposed by both the school department, school committee, and the town. And one of those items that came up was, and we don't have to have this discussion tonight, but what would it mean to put the meals tax on the table, and what communities have them? We pass that information around. I'm not saying I'm an advocate for it, but I'm not saying that I'm not, because we do have limited options going forward. And I'll get you the copy of the listing of the communities, but pretty much, as was mentioned, you have it, most of the places around us have it, and it's, once again, philosophical. The board would need to come to some general grips with it. And also, if I could just outline why it's in your packet, I read with great pleasure that Governor Patrick had put out an expression of something called gateway cities and school districts, and noting that 11 of our cities across the state, we had talked about this briefly, Brockton, Fall River, Springfield, Worcester, Lowell, Lawrence, and other cities have had a little bit more difficulty than some other places in the state in balancing their budgets with respect to their school district. And by utilizing resources like colleges and universities and other connections to business and industry, it's become a little bit easier for those cities to work their way back, if you will. And
Okay, great. It's great that you're looking into that program as an initiative. I know that it's for the cities, and that you're proposing that it be enlarged to include some gateway towns. So I think that's a terrific initiative. Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the rest of it, if I could, I don't know that I need to give you any further update. I know it's a long night on the status reports. Unless individuals have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, then we'll move right along.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We voted on the statewide municipal aid police issue. Police tow list policy discussion. We were waiting for, we had several applicants who had expressed an interest in being added to the police tow list. We asked Chief Stanley to come up with to take a look-see at what we had for towing at the moment and what his recommendation would be. And his recommendation is in your packet in the form of a memo that he sent to us on February 8th. Where he advised that he reviewed the police towing operations and contacted all the people and on the tow list, which I believe there are 4 at the moment. Is that correct, Chief? Correct. And he has a meeting scheduled with them on the 1st of March. He's expressing his interest that the number of tow levels, the number of tow companies already in existence for a community of our size is to be excessive. And that it's not his intent to hurt any existing company, but he thinks that 2 would probably be enough. So I think that, does anybody have any questions, concerns, or
No, I think that we had someone inquiring a couple months ago.
several companies?
And that's what we said we'd do, is refer it to the chief. It's under the police policies. Let the chief deal with it. I'm in agreement with his recommendation, that he limit the number to whatever that is. He's not going to hurt existing people, and through attrition, he'll get down to the appropriate number. Do we need a motion or some? I don't think we need to do anything. It's his policy.
Well, I wanted to see how the board felt about his policy, so that's why we're discussing.
Ah.
If we get a consensus of the board,
He's the
or we can
department
vote
head.
to adopt it as an official policy of the board.
Well, I think we could also just, as a Board of Selectmen, to, make a motion, whether it's our policy or whatever, that any requests to be on the tow list come through the chief. I don't know if that needs to be a motion, but I think that would, you know, as you said, I mean, we talked to Mr. Andrews earlier about, you know, the heads of the departments, the professionals, you know, that if this is his recommendation, that I don't think that someone should come into our office and make the decision, you know, or say, oh, and I want to get on this, and then we're in a struggle between our department, ourselves, and a business in town. So just any of them go through the chief, and he'll make recommendations as needed.
Well, Madam Chair, I just want to say that I'm not sure why, you know, 4 don't work. It's been that way for a really long time, but I do think that you hurt local businesses. I think you take opportunity away, and I think you're going to leave a bad taste in their mouth. I agree. I don't want to be the one that has to make that decision, so I'll let you do that. But 2 tow companies pretty much means that people are never, you know, there's going to be very rare opportunities to get on that tow list, and a lot of the local tow companies, you know, rely on their day. So.
I don't think that he's cutting.
Well, they're cutting by attrition, but then they can't get.
Well, someone could go and ask him.
If I may, Madam Chairman, there's an awful lot involved in being a tow company for a police department, with an investment in the infrastructure and what's required with flatbeds and so forth. The 4 companies, no one's trying to take anything away from them. I was clear about through attrition that I think in the future, and you only help provide a better service when the weak leave and the strong survive. We have to talk reality. We're municipal service. We're not in handout programs. We're not in a position to try to sprinkle around little things so we have a bunch of, I had a great term, but I'm leaving that off. We don't want a bunch of people running around who really don't know what they're doing just to save face so we can all say, this is nice. We have all these people and we help everybody. Our job is to provide a professional service to the people in this town. If you have 2 companies eventually, the cream will rise to the top. They can invest because they have more business. They will invest with better equipment, faster response, and they will work together. Currently, the 4 companies we have, they're providing a service for us. And again, we're not trying to hurt them. Someday you may be down to 2, and if you are, you'll find that the 2 you're down to really compete to have the best equipment out there, and it can happen. It's big expense for these guys. And if all of a sudden they're investing and only getting called once every 24 days, they can't survive that way either.
Thank you, Chief. Well said.
I have a
Mr.
question,
Cruz.
Chief. Now, with the 2 companies you have, do they alternate?
No, there were 4 companies, Walter.
4. Do they alternate?
Right,
On a
every
daily
day.
basis, okay.
Yeah, which is
So
difficult.
that makes it a lot better than what we had before with the 7.
Yeah. That
Plus,
was
on your
great.
policy, everything is printed out to the letter. You know,
Correct.
what they need, what they don't need, insurance and all that, so that makes it
Right.
a lot better.
Yep.
And I think our policy does call, it has to go to the chief of police. So I think that's a
Accreditation.
good call. And now, do they have to bid on it? Like, in other words, a proposal come up with all it? Can you change it from year to year according to the company? But that's your discretion anyways, because
Yeah.
it does say that if they don't perform, you have the discretion to.
It's working out
relieve
just fine with these guys. There are penalty clauses in the policy that if one of these companies fail to respond and so forth, but we don't have those issues. These guys are all, they know the score, they know what they have to do.
But I think it's good for other people to know that just because they're a tow company, when they have an accident, the person at that accident can request AAA, but most of them may be AAA people anyways, so. So it's covered both ways. In other
Thank
words,
you.
just not that tow company
Right.
going out for the tow service.
Okay, so by consensus of the board, we agree to abide by the police opinion, chief's opinion.
Yes.
Do we want to take a vote? Why don't we take a vote?
I'll make a motion that the board defers the decision on adding anyone to the tow list. We'll take our direction from the chief's recommendations.
Is there a second?
It's a second, subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, that will
Right.
approve it, right, yes, I'm sorry.
Second.
I can clear that. Put those together.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Abstain? It's 4-1-0. Thank you, Chief. We have the Westfield appointments that we're going to make this evening, hopefully. And we also have, we will, Mr. Andrews? Will we need the chief for the,
Excuse me, Chief? Chief? I'm sorry.
Excuse a minute.
yes, please. We'll be moving right along, and just for the informational purposes, we're going to be going into executive session at the end of the meeting this evening to discuss the deployment of security personnel. And I'm asking the chief to stay, please. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair?
We'll try to move right along, so you won't be too much longer, chief. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Ekstrom.
I was going to say, seeing we just got the interviews, I don't know if everyone has all their notes with them or whatever. Is there any way that possibly we could, we're meeting Saturday morning, right?
Yes,
Could we put on the agenda that after that discussion that we could make these appointments? Does anyone, for some reason I feel like it's a little, I don't want to say contentious tonight, but I think that we all have a lot to say. And so, and I know that the hours are going, so it might be better if we put that off until Saturday as part of our Saturday agenda.
Will everybody be available on Saturday?
I can make myself available.
Yeah.
Okay, shouldn't be too long on Saturday. Can I ask his wife if he's available? Thank you. His proxy is in the...
he doesn't know that just happened.
His proxy is in the audience.
Madam Chair, while we're on
you.
that subject, though, just briefly, what I've done is I thought that we have 3 withdrawals. Mrs. Bronk withdrew because Selectman Mrs. Pizzoli withdrew, Mr. Smith withdrew, and I believe that left us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 candidates. What I had thought of as an idea was I had made a list of them, and I will redo the list for Saturday because I made one mistake. And then I thought what we'd do is take these, and I put different columns on there. You can put your name on it or not, and then it would be a matter of public record. And that if we just pass these out and go down the first round, and everybody pick their top 7, and then if we had 3 on everybody's piece, right, then we'd make the motion to appoint that person to the group, right? And then go to the next column and do the same thing, and go to until we have at least 3 votes for 7 people each.
If I could just add one suggestion, if you pass out what you have tonight, despite the minor
that was one
withdrawal,
I
at least
apologize.
we can use that. As
He's
a little,
here. I apologize to Mike.
Right, maybe we can just take those sheets home.
Oh,
and,
sure.
and mark them up and be ready for Saturday, so it will be
excellent. Thank you.
We can do our
And,
home. We
yeah,
can do some
Mr.
homework.
I apologize to Mr. Mulcair. I accidentally crossed his name off when he came up for the
Thank you.
handicap board.
Okay, so we'll move right to the ABCC regarding the seasonal estimates.
You have to make a motion on that?
Yes, I do need
have
a
it?
motion, please. It's at the very back of your
sorry.
packet. Do you want mine? Flip it over.
Madam Chair?
I make a
If I
motion.
may? You left the Westfield discussion.
That's what we just discussed.
You know, I had one more question on Westfield.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Under the notes that we were making on that plan, once Saturday, this question goes to timeline. So Saturday after at our meeting, we'll put that on the agenda, right? Westfield
Yes, we will.
appointments, and then there is not a meeting next week.
That's correct.
So
The people who are appointed will get a phone call from our office. They will be able to stop by and pick up the RFP template, and
and you'll have that ready, Mr. Andrews?
and then they
After
can set.
Saturday?
Yes, we'll have it.
Madam Chair, that may actually, seeing we don't have a meeting, we're not having a meeting next week? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so if we're not having a meeting, perhaps maybe the end of this week, you as the chairman could post actually a meeting for Tuesday night for this, in here, for an organizational meeting, so that they could.
They could meet here.
So
next
anyone who's
Tuesday evening.
prepared,
Well, that's
anyone
what I'm
who's
saying.
applied,
Right.
we'll notify you Monday of your appointment, and we would have the meeting scheduled for here
Well-
Tuesday, so they could just do it, and then we could get them right on.
Monday is a
target.
holiday, so,
Right, it's a holiday week,
Well,
yeah.
I-
Well, that was
I
my
could call them
question.
Saturday or over the
That was my
weekend.
question. If we voted on it Saturday, the stuff
Or
will be ready
Wednesday.
on Tuesday for them to pick up.
right, and why don't we post a meeting for them on Thursday?
Should we not,
You
should
wanna
we
do it for
not?
Thursday instead? Give it
Right,
a
Have
couple of
them-
days.
As many of them as can show up on Thursday, they'll
Okay,
have a meeting posted on Thursday.
sounds good. So, yeah, so if
A
you could do
week
that.
after, so the first meeting,
Would be the
Thursday, the
24th.
22nd, 20,
I believe it's the 24th.
24th, yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes.
all of you who are aspiring Westfield RFPers, please mark your calendars for Thursday, the 24th, in the event that you are one of the lucky 7. Thank you. Okay, I'll now entertain a motion on the ABCC seasonal estimates issue, please.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the letter to the ABCC that states that acting under the authority contained in Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 17 is amended, the undersigned, that's the Board of Selectmen, local licensing authority, at a meeting held on March 15th,
That would be
March-
February 15th.
February 15th, 2011, estimated that the temporary increased resident population of the town of Wareham as of July 2011 would be 44,000.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous. Please, Mr. Andrews, we get that typo corrected, and
We'll have
the
to sign
board
it tomorrow
can,
in the office.
we can sign it on Saturday if
We'll
you're
have- we'll
not
have it ready,
available
Madam
to
Chair.
sign it.
We'll have it ready.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Is there any other town business?
Man, well, it's just very quickly, because I know that we're trying to speed up the night. Mr. Andrews and I apologize because I had to step out when you were talking about the Cape Cod Canal 100-year anniversary.
No, he skipped over that. He's gonna talk about it next week.
Oh, I was gonna say that, I thought it was too early. Because just to keep in mind, it's Wareham's 275th anniversary that same year. So perhaps you could talk to them and we could partner up something like the Centennial and, what is it, the whatever the heck it is, but. Because I was thinking of that and I thought it was too early for us to start appointing it for that, for the 275th. But if they're doing it for the 100th, maybe we could work on it as well.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair.
And, I don't remember what else I had.
Anyone else have any other town business? Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair, to you and the board, we went over all the minutes that were, that needed to be brought up to date, put on hold. Mr. Andrews, myself, and the staff from the office went through with it. And then we went back over it with Attorney Rich Bowen. So with your pleasure, at the next regular meeting, we'll have all the dates of the ones to be approved and released. And we can give that to you at the next
We'll put that on the March
meeting
1st
on
agenda.
the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Yeah,
That's a
you're welcome.
tedious job, and I appreciate your attention to detail. Any other town business?
The only, Madam Chair, under item 6 on the consent agenda, the discussion regarding the Board of Health appointment process.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped right over that. That issue has been, we discussed it last week. The chairman of the Board of Health has concurred that there was a misstep in the process, and there is, for the public's edification, a vacancy, full member vacancy on the Board of Health. You are welcome to apply for that vacancy. The applications will be forwarded to the Board of Selectmen and to the Board of Health for a recommendation, and then we will proceed to properly appoint the third member of the Board of Health. Ms. Allen also was very gracious in agreeing agreeing to go back over and look at the votes that were taken and rescind them and take corrective action where necessary. So I'm sure she'll be getting back to us with a report on how that's being accomplished.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, great. Thank you for reminding me of that, Mrs. Ekstrom. Okay, if there's no further business before the board, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session. Purpose of
Deployment of security.
security personnel or devices, and I so declare it as chair. We will not be coming. Roll call, please. Mrs. Ekstrom.
Yes, did you second?
Second.
Second.
Yes.
Roll call, Mrs. Wenzel.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Cruz, Mr. Holmes. And we will not be coming back into open session. Thank you, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Remember, Saturday, the 26th, 6:30 at the high school.
A motion for a 10-minute recess.
5 minutes?
5-minute recess?
2 minute?
5 minute? Well, you got people still in the room. You have to clear the room.
5-minute recess.
Thank you.
We'll continue executive session.